Member Bennett?
Here.
Member Brindle?
Here.
Member Sprague?
Here.
Member Swenson?
Here.
Mayor Hovland?
Here. First matter of business this evening is the approval of the meeting agenda, the form of agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, we approve the form of meeting agenda. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next, the consent agenda. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I do, Your Honor. Item H.
All right. 4H.
F.
4F. All right. With the exception of 4F and H, is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, we approve the balance of the consent agenda with the exclusion of items F and H. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. All right. Let's take 4F, which is the encroachment agreement requested for 4402 France Avenue. Member Swenson.
I have a couple questions. How long, long-term additional parking needs potentially back there? You know, we've talked about the space back there. Does this change our ability to help out with parking in that area? Or is this all underground?
Director Hool, can you
Yep.
handle that one?
What this is an encroachment agreement to run a sanitary sewer and water service underneath the alleyway
That's
to connect to the building along France Avenue. They didn't analyze it for parking or use of the facility. They're already actually using the facility for kind of a home base for their business operations that they do.
Okay.
But they were in need of a restroom in that facility.
Sure, and then that's my second question is, what is it zoned, and is whatever they're using it for now or going to use it for a legal use for it?
I don't have the zoning, but I believe it would stay the same, and I believe it's a commercial, but I'm
I would
pure
believe
guessing
it's
at that.
commercial
Yep,
too, but
yeah.
I just
Yep.
Sorry,
felt
don't
I should
know.
ask. Okay, I'll move this issue.
I have a question as well. I'm glad you pulled this one. In the encroachment agreement itself, in paragraph 2, and this may be a question for Roger Knutson, our city attorney, we know that the owner requires water and sewer service for parcel 2 to tie into the water and sewer service of parcel 1 that would extend across the city's alley. In paragraph 2, it talks about the property owner being liable for any damage to the city's alley. And that term damage isn't defined, the costs of restoration, whatever it might be. Is there a reason that we need to define damage in the agreement? Or is the language that's there that says caused by the construction, repair, replacement, or use for maintenance of the private utilities located within the city's alley adequate for our purposes?
I think it covers everything, Mayor.
All right. Okay. Member Swenson, you're moving this matter?
I am.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second on resolution 2012-134. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Carried. And then 4H, Member Sprague.
Yes, Your Honor. Director Hool, just wanted to respond to some questions from the community about how we made our decisions on the sides to remove parking on Antrim.
Yes, on Antrim, what we're proposing with this no parking, and actually the roadway striped this way with the bike lane, the bike lanes. We looked at the residential homes. The majority of the residential homes are on the west side. So our thought process was that if they had guests that were parked out in front of their homes, is that versus that they'd be adjacent to their homes versus crossing the roadway. And we do realize that there is a church on the roadway, adjacent to the roadway also, but we thought that on a more continued use of parking that would serve the homes better.
Okay, so more convenience parking needed on the west side.
Right.
Did it also have anything to do with the radius of the bike lane coming off of 70th and making that turn into Antrim to have more of a continuous path, or?
It could be looked at that way, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. With those comments in mind, I will move the matter.
I will
will second with a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Director Houle, is it not also the case that there is some side street parking available on that east side as well? So it's my recollection, I'm familiar with the area, that the church has a parking lot, so there is off-street parking available at the church. And in addition, there is a street that runs into McGuire Park that's just south of the church, which would also permit parking to occur on that side of Antrim, even though not on that side of Antrim Road itself.
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
We probably had the same resident call, all of us, but I thought you made a good point. It's just a judgment call. You're recommending that we put the parking bay on the west side. She was thinking that it made more sense to have it on the east side where the church was.
Right.
And I think people, what I hear here is people are comfortable with the recommendation that you've made, and so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2012-136, designating no parking areas on Antrim Road from West 70th to Valley View and on Cahill from Dewey Hill to West 78th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Now we're going to move into the special recognitions and presentations portion of the agenda. The first special recognition tonight is recognizing Edina for the third consecutive year as one of the 100 best communities for young people. And we have Katie Baskin and Heather Hain-Anderson with us. If, ladies, please come up and identify yourselves, and look forward to your presentation. This is quite remarkable.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Coughlin and council members. My name is Heather Hain-Anderson, and I am the Executive Director for Connecting with Kids. And this is Julie Rogers-Bascom. She's the Service Learning Coordinator for Edina Public Schools. As such, we are fortunate to be able to bring you some good news this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you on behalf of all of the contributors to Connecting with Kids to celebrate the selection of Edina as one of America's 100 Best Communities for Young People by the America's Promise Alliance, the nation's largest partnership organization dedicated to youth and children. It is a competition that recognizes communities' efforts to reduce high school dropout rates. I'm especially pleased to say, as Mayor Hovland did, that this is the third consecutive year that Edina has received this designation. Although the award application was done under the aegis of Connecting with Kids, it was a collaborative effort. And with me this evening is Julie, as I mentioned, and also Scott Neal, City Manager, was instrumental in writing the application for the competition. Factors contributing to Edina's inclusion in this year's class were noted by America's Promise. The Edina Public Schools has a 99% graduation rate and provides youth with a variety of programs focused on service learning, community service, and leadership that help them grow up to be well-rounded and active citizens. The Edina Community Foundation offers community service programs and safety awareness sessions and supports Edina's city parks. The Communities Connecting with Kids program brings together city, public school officials, and faith leaders with families to provide resources and programs that support our young people. Those are just a few of the examples, but of course, the City of Edina, the Chamber of Commerce, the Edina Community Foundation, and Edina Public Schools, along with all of the residents, businesses, and nonprofit organizations that have worked and collaborated with each other to create such a great community, all deserve recognition for playing a part in this year's award. So I congratulate all of you and all of us for this achievement, and I ask you to join me in thanking all who work to make Edina one of America's 100 best communities for young people.
I think that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you
Julie,
very
any
much.
comment at all? This is, you've been involved integrally in all 3 years, I think, in getting this reward. As I said, it was just, I think, remarkable getting a 3 year.
As has Heather and so many of you who have contributed not only to an application, but to making this the kind of place that is recognized as a place where people want to come and raise their families.
Well, thanks for bringing us to the council, and it'll allow many of our citizens who watch the meetings to be able to enjoy this as well.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter in the special recognitions and presentations portion of the agenda is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, and Chief Scheer is here with us. I'll read the proclamation and the council will adopt it. Whereas the City of Edina is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all of those living in and visiting our state. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,600 people in the United States in 2010, according to the latest research from the nonprofit National Fire Protection Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to more than 369,000 home fires. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas only 1/3 of Americans have both developed and practiced a home fire escape plan. And whereas almost 3/4 of Americans do not have an escape plan, however, less than half have actually practiced it, or do have an escape plan, however, less than half have actually practiced it. And whereas 1/3 of American households who made one and estimate that they thought they would have at least 6 minutes before a fire in their home would become life-threatening, the time availability is often less than that. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas Edina's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Edina's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2012 Fire Prevention Week theme, Have Two Ways Out, effectively serves to remind us to develop and practice a home fire escape plan during the Fire Prevention Week and year-round. Therefore, the City Council of Edina does hereby proclaim October 7th to the 13th, 2012 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the state and urges all of the people of Edina to practice their home fire escape plan during Fire Prevention Week 2012 and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of Edina's fire and emergency services. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, we adopt the Fire Prevention Week proclamation. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Chief, here is the proclamation, and I know you have a few words of wisdom for us. Welcome, Chief Marty Shearer from the Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I want to thank you for all your continued support of the Fire Department and our fire prevention efforts. Because of that, we have a historically low number of fires in our city based on our population. And I do want to remind everyone to check your smoke detectors. A lot of people think it can't happen to me, but a good example would be 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night. We had a house fire that started in a garage. A vehicle in the garage caught fire. The garage got rather extremely involved in the fire, and a 12-year-old girl in the house heard the smoke detectors go off, and she woke the rest of the family up, and they barely escaped. So it was a very close call for that family, and this working smoke detector is what saved them. I don't think Ryan Schultz is here, but I want to recognize him. He also was the first arriving officer on the scene, and he went in and helped rescue the people out, so he did a great job. Thank you very much, and check your smoke detectors and have 2 ways out. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you. The next public safety-related matter involves our Chief Jeff Long and 2 of our officers who are up for police commendations, Jim Rigg and Vic Conters. Chief, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, tonight I have the honor to award 2 of our employees with one of the highest awards that we distribute. In order to be eligible for these awards, they must be nominated by an individual who refers the nomination to our awards committee. The awards committee then reviews the nomination and refers it to me for approval. Despite numerous nominations each year, very few are actually approved and distributed. These awards are not given out for just fulfilling expectations, but they are awarded to those that go beyond expectations on a continual basis. Tonight I'll be issuing 2 Distinguished Service Awards. I'd like to invite Officer Jim Rigg and Sergeant Vic Conters up to the front, if you wouldn't mind, and stand next to me. At this time, I'll read their awards, and then hopefully just take a minute for pictures after. In 1991, Sergeant Vic Conters was a founding member of the Minnesota Law Enforcement Memorial Association Honor Guard, LEMA, the first statewide law enforcement honor guard in the U.S. For the next 20 years, he dedicated his time and wisdom to help build and grow an association to aid and support others. LEMA is dedicated to assisting the families and home agencies of law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty. Sergeant Conters was intimately involved in the LEMA Honor Guard and lived their motto, the best we can do in the least that we can do. He did this through active participation in more than 20 full honor funerals for fallen officers and more than 150 other LEMA events in Minnesota, Washington, D.C., state and national conferences, parades, sporting events, and memorials. Sergeant Contras was an instructor at Camp Ripley for the Lima Honor Guard Training Camp, another first of its kind in the United States, training honor guards from over 140 other law enforcement agencies from around the country. At his retirement from Lima, Sergeant Contras was the administrative lieutenant overseeing and facilitating the annual Honor Guard camp. He contributed thousands of volunteers' hours, has been a tremendous role model, and was described by Lima as an irreplaceable man with enthusiasm, dedication, and attention to detail, and a quiet leader. By so generously and faithfully giving his time, energy, and talent, Sergeant Contras has made a positive impact on law enforcement and their families in Minnesota and beyond. Therefore, the City of Edina thanks Sergeant Vic Contras and awards him the Edina Police Department Distinguished Service Award. This is the Distinguished Service Award for Officer Jim Rigg. Edina has embraced traffic enforcement as a multi-purpose tool to promote safe driving, increase our citizens' quality of life, and discourage criminal acts. In Minnesota, between 2008 and 2010, illegal or unsafe speed was a contributing factor in 266 fatal crashes, resulting in 296 deaths. Speeding is not an innocent crime. It puts every motorist at risk on the road. Through the efforts of trend-changing officers working for the Edina Police Department, our city has become the poster department for traffic enforcement and safety. Officer Jim Rigg, an 18-year veteran of the Edina Police Department, is a leader in traffic enforcement. Officer Rigg's accomplishments and an estimated 25,000 career citations are without compare. In 2000 and 2001, Officer Rigg wrote approximately 9,400 traffic citations, averaging 391 citations per month. In the last 2.5 years, he has issued over 7,000 citations, averaging 236 a month. Channel 5 News published a story showing that Officer Rigg had written more speeding citations than any other officer, deputy, or state trooper in Hennepin County. In 1997, he was recognized by the Edina Crime Prevention Fund for his continued enforcement efforts. Despite his numerous contacts with drivers, he maintains a professional demeanor and a respectful approach towards the public. Officer Rigg exemplifies the high level of dedication and professionalism we aspire to at the City of Edina. His dedication to citizen safety through traffic enforcement is beyond compare. Therefore, the City of Edina thanks Officer Jim Rigg and awards him the Edina Police Department's Distinguished Service Award.
Guys feeling smiley? Snuggle? And one more. Very nice, thank you.
Fortunate to have some tremendous police officers in our town, and those were two of the best. So it was nice to have a crowd here to appreciate them. Next, we're going to move into the public hearing portion of the agenda, and I'll tell you in advance it could be a long night. We've got 14 public hearings to go through this evening. So those are the ones that involve special assessments, and we're going to start with tree removal, which is a special assessment for A1. Have you got that matter?
Actually,
Director?
Mr. Mayor and Council, what I'd like to do is just do a forward on all that would cover all the special assessments.
You want to cover all the special
year.
assessments involving street reconstruction projects?
Street reconstruction, everything
that's
that
good.
they're doing a final assessment tonight, and then I'll hand it off to Assistant Director Cotray.
Okay, good. All right,
tonight-
so we've got quite a few of those to go through.
Tonight we have, like you say, 14 public hearings on final special assessment hearings. These are all based on the Chapter 429 of the state statute to basically improve our city's infrastructure. What we'll have tonight is the final assessment hearings. All the assessments are based on the city policy that was adopted on August 21st, 2012. There is 2 municipal state aid roadway projects that are based off of the municipal state aid policy that was adopted in 2010 with the revisions that apply on the 21st. And then there's 4 payback methods that I'd like to cover real quickly. One is once you adopt the final assessment rule is that the property owner can either pay the entire balance that's due or partial pay prior to certification. The certification would occur on November 30th, so prior to November 30th is to partial pay 25% or more, or the property owner can do nothing and let it roll over to the appropriate payback period, or else you can look at an assessment deferral if you're 65 years of age or have a hardship, and the assessing department is where they would need to stop in and double check with our city assessor to see if they would qualify for an assessment deferral.
Director Hill, before you go further, I had a resident call me today that's in one of the potential assessment areas, and he was wondering about if this final assessment were approved after a public hearing and he wanted to pay the entire balance due. You say the certification is on November 30th. He needs to pay before that date if this matter is approved. Who does he pay? Does he come here and pay the city, or does he go to the county? What does he do? Actually,
you can stop into City Hall and pay in the assessing department, which is a couple of doors down on the first level.
Thank you.
The payback periods are for local roadway reconstruction is 15 years. That was moved from 10 years to 15 years. The garbage and debris removal and aquatic weeds, weed mowing and maintenance districts, that's 1 year. Those are the ones you'll be hearing first. Tree removals vary depending upon the dollar amount. 1 year for under $500, 2 years of $500 to $1,000, and 3 years over $1,000. The repayment periods, the assessment interest rate is essentially 1% over the net interest rate of the bonds. So on a 15-year roadway project, we're looking at 3.1% for this year's repayments. Now that's if you let all of it or partial pay it, that would go to the county, and then they would collect it over the 15 years, and the 3.1% would be applied towards that. The maintenance districts are 1 year at 6.5%. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann.
I might have one more question for you here that might help some folks later on. The 1% over the net interest rate was something that this council worked on just recently, along with extending the repayment period from 10 years to 15 years to lower the annual impact on residents, plus going to a level payment over that 15-year period. What does the 1% represent?
The 1%, and actually, Finance Director Wallen's in the audience too, but I think I can probably answer that one. Is that it covers the cost for the bonds, the cost to apply the assessments. It's the interest off the bonds, the repayment portion of that, and all basically the finance costs of financing that special assessment is what that covers. I think. Is there anything else, John? Yeah.
It's pretty good.
He could probably give you more technical
what about the engineering
answer.
costs?
The engineering costs are actually part of the actual assessment itself, and they're distributed amongst what the property owner's paying and what the utilities. So if we have a project that has partial utilities and roadway costs, is that the engineering costs are distributed amongst those different parts of the project.
Okay. Director Wallen?
Director Houle covered most of the reasons why the 1% increase. There are others as well I'd like to get into, including underpayments. This would cover underpayments. It would also, the state statute says that the bond costs need to be covered by 105%. This would address that. It covers bond cost. It covers in this interest rate environment. One of the biggest differences is as prepayments come in after certification, those prepayments have to be invested. The bond cost is at this point is substantially, or the net interest rate cost is substantially higher than what those bonds can, or what those prepayments can be invested for until they could go towards a called bond. That negative arbitrage also has to be covered, and that's quite substantial in this interest rate environment.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Catry, go ahead.
Mayor Hovland, members of the council. Thank you. I have before you tonight 3 assessments: tree removal, aquatic weeds, and weed cutting. I'd like to start with tree removal. Under City Code Section 1055, control and prevention of shade disease trees calls for removal of trees with Dutch elm or oak wilt disease. City Forester identifies diseased trees and notifies homeowner by registered mail. They have 21 days to comply. The homeowner has the option to remove and dispose of the diseased tree on their property. And this year we have 6 different properties that chose to have the city contract for the removal of the trees, for a total of 8 trees in 2012. The city forester secures quotes from private contractors. The cost per tree varies greatly depending upon the size and its location. City staff does not remove diseased trees. We do contract out for that work. As City Engineer Houle stated, under $500 is a 1-year assessment, $500 to $1,000 is a 2-year assessment, $1,000 and up is a 3-year assessment, and additional years are available upon request. This year we have these 6 properties stating the assessment and the number of years that the assessment will be extended, and each property is assessed a $30 administrative fee. The staff recommendation is to assess all 6 properties stated for their assigned assessment and for the number of years stated.
Questions for Ms. Catry? It's fine. Member Sprague.
Thank you. How does this compare to previous years in terms of the number of trees? Are we trending up, down, same?
Very much the same.
Okay.
Good. Stand by. We may have some more questions for you, but I'm going to open this matter up for a public hearing. So you can go ahead and sit down.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up for a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address this potential assessment for tree removal, diseased tree removal? Seeing no one coming forward and hearing nothing, is there a motion to close the public hearing? It's been moved and seconded we close the public hearing. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed say nay. Carried.
Tree removal, TR 12, Resolution 2012-116.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second on the assessments involving these 6 properties for tree removal. Further discussion? Do we need a roll call on this? Or
yes, sir.
Favorable roll? Yeah, okay.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Sprague?
Aye.
Member Swenson?
Aye.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. Next matter is aquatic weeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hovland, members of the council. I'd like to move on to aquatic weeds. This is a city administrated aquatic weed control service. The service is requested by homeowners that could be administered by their association, and the service is not required by the city or the DNR. The first map that you're seeing is a map of Indian Head Lake, and we have 33 accessible units on Indian Head. This shows all of the different fees associated with the treatment of Indian Head Lake, for a total of $399.93 per home for 33 accessible units, for a total of $13,197.78. Arrowhead Lake map. Arrowhead Lake has 36 accessible units, for a total cost of $13,691.46 divided by the 36 accessible units equals $380.32 per home. And the Mill Pond. The Mill Pond has 63 accessible units for a total of $4,350 divided by the 63 assessable units equals $69 per home. The staff recommendation is to assess the stated assessments. All will be a one-year assessment.
Questions for Ms. Khatri? All right, thank you. This matter I'm also opening up for public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment or inquire with regard to any of these proposed special assessments for residents on Arrowhead Lake, Indian Head Lake, or the Mill Pond? Seeing no one coming forward and hearing no one, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded we close the public hearing regarding aquatic weeds improvements. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded we adopt Resolution 2012-117 assessing Arrowhead Lake, Indian Head Lake, and Mill Pond residents for the aquatic weed treatments that took place at those three lakes. Roll call, please.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle. Aye. Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Next is weed mowing issue that we face, Resolution 2012-118.
Thank you, Mayor
Ms.
Hovland.
Khatri.
City Code Section 1050.05 talks about the maintenance of vegetation. Weeds shall be regularly cut or controlled such that no individual plant shall exceed at any time 10 inches in height or length as measured from its base at the ground to the tip of each stalk, stem, blade, or leaf. When weeds exceed 10 inches in height, the weed inspector first attempts to reach the property owner in person, secondly by phone, and lastly by certified letter. The owner has 10 days to comply. The park maintenance staff then cuts the weeds and the properties assess the cost of labor and equipment. 8 different properties in 2012 were cut by park maintenance staff. These are the addresses and the amounts. And a $30 per property administrative fee is also included. The staff recommendation is to assess all 8 properties for their assigned amount for each one-year assessments.
Questions for Ms. Khatri? Member Sprague?
The frequency varies across the parcels in terms of how many times they've done this.
It does, absolutely. It just depends upon how long it takes to get to the 10 inches.
And for number 8, why is there no street address?
It's a vacant lot.
It's vacant. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Khatri? All right, I'm going to open this matter up for public hearing. You should all know that your mayor is the weed inspector by state law. But we wisely have an assistant weed inspector. So he has been out making sure that these weeds get cut. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and testify regarding this matter? All right. Seeing no one coming forward, hearing no one expressing a desire to testify, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We close the public hearing. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Motion.
I will move this. I have one question for acting.
Let's get a second, and then you can
I'll
ask.
second it, and then you can have
Go
your
ahead.
Okay.
question.
The question that I have is, it is my understanding, and this is for Ms. Khatri, it is my understanding that the enforcement of the code on weeds is largely complaint-driven by neighbors of the properties?
It is, yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
City staff can, as they're doing their business, see that there is a property that's not in compliance, but many are complaint-driven.
So it's completely appropriate for residents who are concerned about a property in their neighborhood to call, but city staff is also not driving up and down the streets trying to spot properties out of
Absolutely.
compliance.
Yes, you're correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And in fairness to the homeowner against whom a complaint has been filed, there's a process that we use to make sure that they're treated fairly. You might want to explain that.
Absolutely. I did mention it in the PowerPoint. They are notified, and they do have time to comply.
All right. So we try to reach them by personal call, phone
By-
call,
yeah.
certified letter.
Absolutely.
We give them plenty of opportunity to take care of it themselves before we step in.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Thank you. Next is the proposed 50th and France maintenance improvement, an annual levy of the property owners down there for maintaining the area. Director Houle.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, tonight we have a final assessment hearing for the maintenance of 50th Street and France Avenue Business District, which is improvement number M12. The 50th and France maintenance areas is located right at 50th and France, kind of bounded on the east side by France Avenue, Halifax Avenue on the west side, 51st Street on the south, and 49th and a half on the north. Includes all the commercial properties, does not include any residential properties that are contained within this area. The assessable square footage is 355,953 square foot. The assessable costs that we had, now keep in mind this is monies that are spent the previous year, so these were 2011 dollars. So it's $245,832.69, which comes out to 69 cents per square foot. Here shows is a table that shows a little bit of the assessment history for this area. It's kind of nice to kind of look at the trends of what's happening. And actually what we're, a couple years ago, 2011, 2010, we were anticipating doing more of a master plan that we're planning exercise that we're going through. That's sort of been put on hold for a little bit, but we still have to replace the pavers that are deteriorating on us. So this last year in 2011, actually, we spent an extra $20,000 on paver replacement. We replaced the pavers at the corner of Walgreens, 49th and a half, and France at the Walgreens store. With that, staff would recommend approval of special assessment M12 for 69 cents per square foot. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Houle on this issue? All right, stand by. I'm going to open this matter up for a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to comment or testify regarding this proposed special assessment of the 50th and France Business District property owners? Seeing no one coming forward and hearing nothing from the audience, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing regarding the proposed 50th and France maintenance improvement, number M12. Discussion. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2012-119, which is the 50th and France maintenance improvement number M12. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. All right. Next matter before us is the proposed special assessment for the Grandview Business District maintenance activity.
Mayor and Council, this is for the final assessment hearing similar to the 50th in France for the maintenance improvements at Grandview Business District, known as improvement number G12. The Grandview area is located west of Highway 100 along Vernon Avenue. Just includes the commercial properties, including, as with the 50th in France, any city properties such as the liquor stores that we have at both those locations are also assessed. The assessable square footage is 465,101 square feet. The assessable cost was $6,692, so it's 1.44 cents per square foot. As you can see on this chart here, or spreadsheet, it actually has gone down. I'd anticipate next year's and the following years it's going to start climbing back up substantially. There's a lot of vegetation that actually needs replacement. There's a lot of flowers and other types of vegetation, those medians that need some work, along with the irrigation system. If we demolish the Public Works building, we'll relocate the irrigation system, and that was one issue we had this last summer, is that we didn't turn the irrigation system on a portion of that area. So with that, we'd recommend that you approve special assessment G12 for 1.44 cents per square foot.
All right. Questions for Director Houle? Thank you. Opening this matter up for public hearing, is there anyone that wishes to testify regarding the proposed special assessment in the Grandview Business District? See no one coming forward. I hear nothing from the audience. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second to close the public hearing regarding the proposed assessment for the Grandview Business District. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion regarding this proposed assessment?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we adopt Resolution 2012-120, levying special assessments for public improvements on the Grandview Square Business District. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle. Aye. Mayor Hovland.
Aye. All right, this will take us now into a series of 9 proposed assessments for neighborhood reconstruction projects that have taken place over the past couple of years. Those are always difficult hearings to have on a preliminary basis. This is typically a little bit better news because the project costs come in a little bit lower, but still people have questions, and appropriately so. So the first one in front of us this evening is the proposed special assessment for the Minnehaha Woods Neighborhood Reconstruction Project, which is embodied in Resolution 2012-121. Director Houle.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, tonight we have the final assessment hearing for roadway improvement number BA334, which is the Minnehaha Woods neighborhood. The Minnehaha Woods neighborhood is located just east of Wooddale Avenue and just west of Minnehaha Creek, which depicts this area here, south of 54th Street and essentially north of 56th Street. The cost for the project, the street costs, which doesn't include the finance costs, you'll notice that the assessment cost is different but than this right here, street cost, because on the assessment cost it includes the finances for that and some of the other engineering costs. So it's $1.55 million for the street costs. The stormwater fund is $771,000, $142,000 for the bridge, which actually came out of the stormwater fund. The water fund is $1.3 million, sanitary sewer fund $800,000, a total cost of $4.5 million. The city utility cost, which you see in green, depicted in green here, is $3.0 million, which is about 66% of the cost of the project. The assessment costs are $1.9 million. It comes down to $10,363.41 per residential equivalent unit. The estimated assessment that was at the project hearing, which is essentially the pending assessment, was $11,800, which is around a 12% reduction. With that, staff would recommend approving special assessment improvement number BA334 per the attached assessment roll. We do have a letter or an email of objection from David Leibel and family at 5536 Park Place. That's up on the dais that we placed that was received today. So with that, I'll take any questions the council may have.
And I think a letter of concern from Jeremiah Kearney, too, which just arrived here as we came upon the dais. Any questions for Director Houle right now, or I think we should open this up for public hearing? This seemed to be a project that generated some mailing. Member Sprague, I know, was circulating some emails that he received from some residents down in that neighborhood. So I'm going to open this up for public hearing and welcome anybody to come up. Remind you that you have 3 minutes and you'll get a warning yellow light and you'll have 30 seconds to go. And don't forget to start with your name and address.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Jeremiah Kearney. My wife Pam and I have lived at 5420 Woodcrest Drive since 1988, and we're enjoying our new street. However, it's coming with a substantial cost. The absolute dollars for the Minnehaha Woods project were close to $1,900,000. It exceeded other projects by several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we decided to do a little analysis of what the cost drivers were in this project. And to that end, we initiated a series of emails to Director Houle and his engineering staff. And the email that I focused on was the total project costs and for our project as compared to other projects. And what struck me was the engineering costs. Our project bore engineering costs of over 20%, while other comparable projects had engineering costs of 8%, which is the Gulf Terrace project, and the Carson's Hill project of 7.1%. Looking at the total engineering cost per REUs, and we have a lot of REUs in our district, 192. Our costs were $2,099. Gulf Terrace was $965, and Carson's Hill was $541. So we would like to know why our engineering costs were so much greater than everybody else's, and such a significantly larger percentage of our overall costs. One thing that struck me in this analysis is that the allocation of the limited resources of the city's engineering staff. 9 projects is a substantial number of projects, and we appear to have borne substantially more private engineering costs and less public engineering costs than any other project. And I just want to state that I think I emailed our comments to you earlier this morning, and hopefully you received them as opposed to just laying this on the table tonight. The question that we have then is, how does Edina, as a matter of policy, begin to allocate its own engineering costs across all these projects when the limited resources of Edina do not allow them to do every project themselves? What's the best policy? Is there a policy? We don't know if there's a policy, but it seems to me that there should be a policy given the fact that there are all these projects being done and there's a finite amount of staff to supervise them. That's my... Excuse me.
Mr. Carney, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just pause for a second. Did Mr. Carney ever have a green light? I was busy taking notes. It's been red as long as I've looked at it here, so I don't know if he ever had... I mean, it feels like about 3 minutes just based on our experience. I don't want to...
I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, it's not your fault. And I don't even know if you can see it because it's behind the computer screen. So why don't you finish that thought? If Member Swenson is right and you've been speaking for about 4 minutes, that's longer than we normally permit because we want to treat
everybody the same.
Could I
have 1 more minute?
Well, I mean, if you already had 4, you already had 1 too many. But so finish up your thought, though. That's important for us, and then wrap it up that way.
I will put into the public record my second point, and that is that the Edina process for determining the private sewer costs was fatally flawed from the beginning, resulting in exceedingly high costs for our neighborhood. And that's the material set out in my public record comments to you.
All right, good. Those are 2 good points. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Carney, for taking the time to send us a comprehensive email, too. Appreciate it. We'll get some answers on some of these things after we're done with the hearing. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on up. Well, let's get this light thing figured out. What's going on here? Or else we're going to have to have somebody do some timing. Okay.
I'll be pretty quick. My name's Andy Brown. Sure. Andy Brown at 5512 Park Place in that district. And I just wanted to focus on the chart below. It's actually the second page in the documents. I don't know if I can get it up here. There we go. To try to emphasize what Jerry was speaking of, there's the 20% on Minnehaha Woods. There's the lower amounts for Gulf Terrace and Carson's Hill. And there's the percentages that he was speaking of. And all these numbers were directed out of that 290-page packet that Sharon Ellison had given us. And there's the REU information. And as far as private versus public engineering cost, and the miscellaneous expense is the outside engineering cost that we incurred, and labor cost is the internal engineering cost that we incurred. And I think the big question, one of those points, one of the 2, was the miscellaneous expense that Minnehaha Woods was $375 and $27 on internal. And you look at Gulf Terrace and you look at Carson's Hill, they incurred $78 and $80, and outside they only incurred $9 and 7. So just the spread and the understanding of what's going on there is was one of the big questions that we had.
So, fair question. Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Brown.
My name is Mark Swenson. I'm fine by
Mr. Swenson, are you going to use the overhead? All right, why don't you go to one of the side microphones and identify yourself? And it's not good to see you in this condition.
I'm fine.
All right,
Just had a little
okay.
surgery. I'm Mark Swenson. I live at 5501 Deaver Drive. And I do want to say two things. Number one, I've been an architect for 40 years, so I watch a lot of construction. I don't think I've ever seen harder working people than the crews that did our work. They were working their butt off all the time, long hours. I really thought they did a great job. That's number one. So that was quick. Number two, we scheduled work to be done, and when they showed up, we were told that they couldn't work that day, even though we'd been told the day before we could. So we rescheduled a second time, same thing happened. We rescheduled a third time, and the same thing happened. 3 times we were sent away when we'd been given the green light to show up, which I consider really bad construction management. So I had to pay my contractor an extra $2,500 to get him to drive in from Hamble a fourth time. So we ended up with some pretty expensive costs. I think we ended up $7,300 plus the $10,000. So my assessment's $18,000. Only $2,500 of that is just kind of wasted. But I'm not asking to change anything for me, but I'd really like to see next year somebody figure out how to solve that one. Okay,
yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
I'd like to get, before I start, here's something back on it that went away. That chart. Jennifer, can you help me out with that? I don't know where the chart is on there. Yeah, it's the one with the bars. It's further up.
It's further up.
Start right here. That's the top one.
It's fine.
Right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Jim Groats.
Grab the microphone, please.
And you're right there in the middle.
My name is Jim Groats, and I live at 5513 Park Place in the Minnehaha Woods District. A couple of things I wish to stress on this chart. You see Minnehaha Woods engineering costs and Carson's Hill. When we got our assessment, it says this is a roadway assessment. And I want to point out to you that Carson's Hill actually has 35,000 plus square yards of paving, and we only have 32,000 plus square yards of paving. Something is way out of whack here. I also have a question for everyone involved with this, and that involves the warranties we're going to be getting from the city and the contractors. I had an issue with regard to the sewer cut done by Vite, who relined the sewer, and that is entirely in the control of the city and entirely in control of the contractor. And if we have a problem, as we had our line televised by Minneapolis and Suburban, who said, you know, you may have a problem with this because they didn't give you a proper cut when they cut that out, and there's now a ridge in there. Was entirely in the control of the city and their contractor, and if any resident in any of these projects coming up here has a problem, we would like to know what the warranties are and who is responsible for that cut. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Groats. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Larry Lomax. I live at 5516 Park Place. I'm also in the same group. A lot of my neighbors worked very hard on pulling together numbers sort of at the last minute. It's been a lot of email exchange over the last few days. I know you've been presented a lot of information. I'm worried that Jerry's hard work that we emailed early this morning apparently only landed on your desks this evening.
No, we got it.
Okay.
We
So
got
I
it.
guess my question is, we've presented, I think, a pretty comprehensive review of the information that we were able to get over the last several days. I know this is a final assessment hearing, but I wanted to hear what opportunity there is for you guys to have more than 27 seconds to review this and get us an answer based on what we think are pretty substantive questions. Is there any chance to extend that or give you more than just a few seconds tonight? That's my question.
Go ahead and sit down.
Okay.
But it's possible. It's in the realm of possibilities. But we'll see what kind of answers we get here. Thanks, Mr. Lomax. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. My name is John Crabtree. I live at 54 Oaklawn Avenue in the project. Really wanted to address my remarks about go back to what Mr. Carney was saying about the costs which were presented to us, about sewer line upgrading. These are the personal light sewers from the center line of the street to the edge of the city right of way. At the meeting back in February of last year, we were told that if the city contractor did it, that the estimated cost for that work was roughly $4,500. At that meeting, there were contractors present, a number of whom have got close relationships with the city, and the message to us was, well, you might be able to get a slightly better deal if you go ahead and get the work done yourselves. I think the first comment I would make is that they all knew what that $4,500 number was, and I think that actually then set a floor below which it was going to be very difficult for us to get any sort of significantly better deal. I had always had a gut feel that to do this renovation work by the open cut method, literally cut a trench, as opposed to cure in place, reline the pipe, should be significantly cheaper. And in fact, what you see in front of you is a picture of the front of my house, which is 5408 Oaklawn Avenue. We went through the entire neighborhood, Jim Groats and I, and we took pictures of every house based upon the city drawings, giving people information as to where the sewer line for their house actually intersected at the middle of the street. And that's a picture of my house, and of course you'll recognize the snowdrifts. We were very surprised last week, I think first information came out on Saturday, that the numbers in the Polder bid, who was a successful contractor, if they were going to do the work, they were going to do the relining work or upgrading work, they were going to charge either $44,000 or $4,100 to do it by cure in place, but their bid was for $14,000, either $1,462 or $1,472 if they did it by open cut method. Most people who did the work themselves would have paid $4,000 or more for the work that they had done. We were not told about that $1,462 number. We believe that we should have been. As you've just heard, there are 192 residential units in this neighborhood. Only 35 were of the type 2, where that would automatically have ruled out being able to cut a trench to do this work. And I also then believe, having talked to people in the neighborhood, that if people had had the opportunity to have the city contractor do this for $1,470, that many of them would have availed themselves of that opportunity. And the real question for you is, why were we not given that number? The number was known by the city. Should have been as of the closing bid date, which is the spreadsheet I got from SEH, was dated 22nd of March 2011. We were also told that if we lived on the west side of the project, we had to have work done by May the 15th. Sorry, east side, west side, it was July the 15th. But we'd really like to know, because a lot of people have spent a lot of extra money which they didn't need to spend.
Right.
And you need to explain that, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Crabtree. We'll find that out too. Anyone else?
Hi there. My name is Darren Wennon. I live at 5525 Oaklawn Avenue. Just a minor question about the re-landscaping that occurred along the streetway. The grass came in, I guess what I consider to be a little late in the year. It was very close to freezing time. Lived in my house for 7 years with even limited watering. I've never had grass issues in my front. But I looked down my street, the 55th block of Oaklawn, and every single one of my neighbors, basically that new grass assessment is dead. So I'm curious, what is the warranty on that implantation of that grass? And what recourse do I have for not only the dead grass that is along the streetway, but the sinkholes that have occurred subsequent to that implantation?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wennon. Anyone else?
I'm Elizabeth Johnson McGarry, and I'm at 5513 Brookview. Here's my question. The engineering and other information costs came to me yesterday, and what I don't know is how you proceed with this. What happens next? We've all given you our responses to this new information. What do you do with it? Do you vote on this assessment tonight? Do we get any information? It would just help me to know what the protocol is, what we can expect with all of this information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. I think from a process standpoint, the first thing we'll do, of course, is get answers to many of these questions that have been raised, and that will help drive the council one direction or another here. So that's what we need to do first. So I think we could start with Mr. Wennon had a landscaping question in the 5500 block. All the new grass that was planted last fall is dead. And he sees that up and down the block, and what's the recourse on that? Is there a warranty? And also apparently some sinkholes have developed. I take it it's in the yard, not the street. I hope.
Oh, you should
paying for a new
introduce
street
yourself.
that has sinkholes in it.
We actually have Paul Pascal and Toby Muse with SEH. They were the project engineers on the project, so I'll ask them to cover most of these questions that came up.
Okay. Mr. Pascal?
Paul Pasco, SEH Engineering, 10901 Red Circle Drive, Minnetonka, Suite 300. Relative to the warranty questions, there is a one-year warranty that begins upon the date of the issue of the final application for payment, which was September 2012. So we will have a one-year warranty that will roll through September 2013. We're already monitoring the right-of-way in all of the work. So as people notice things, same protocol, we're contacting Carter Schulze, and Carter will put it on a punch list, and we work with the contractor to get those things taken care of. And that's true also, well, that's the answer.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, we've got some period of time to work with contractors to make sure that they live up to their warranty. And I take it we've got performance bonds to make sure that we get this work done right. Okay.
The one issue, though, is that they'll look at the sinkholes. The grass is actually only a 42-day warranty on it.
Check.
With proper watering. So, you know, that's an issue that we've had on virtually all of our projects, especially with the drought this last summer, is we've had a lot of, kill of the sod and things, sod kill and stuff like that. So we'll take a look at it. What we're looking at is possibly doing some hydro seeding in the community on some of these projects. Sod just does not, coming out of the sod fields, it's just not drought resistant as it used to be. So with our, the highs and the lows and things like that. So we're on the Tracy Avenue project, we're actually doing a hydro seed similar to what we did on 44th Street. So we need to relook at that, analyze the neighborhood and see how much sod kill there is. But I'll have to tell you that there is only, per the specifications, a 42-day warranty on the sod work. So we'd have to try to find a different funding source internally if we're going to replace any sod on the project.
Member Sprague?
How is that warranty negotiated? I mean, is that standard across communities, or?
It is. It's what what we rely on a lot of our specifications is MnDOT specifications, and that comes right out of the MnDOT specifications. Is the 42-day warranty period.
So the 1 year that he was referring to would be for the cement work and other aspects of the project, the street project.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Right.
While we're on that warranty issue, Mr. Groats raised the issue of potential problems at a curb cut.
Right. What Mr. Groats was referring to was when the trunk sanitary sewer was lined, the contractor reinstates the service to an individual home by sending a robotic drill up the pipe, a robotic saw, and they reinstate the service from inside the pipe using that robotic saw.
that what Mr. Groats is describing, I believe, is that rather than a 100% opening where they cut the entire width, the entire surface area, there's a piece on his that wasn't fully cut. So he doesn't have a 100% effective opening. Maybe he's got an 85 or an 80. I'm not sure of the details, but it would be the same procedure that there's a 1-year warranty on that. It would go on the punch list. We would alert Palda and Sons, who would come out, take a look at it, and correct it if necessary.
All right. Can they come out and do that relatively quickly?
Yeah, I believe so. But we'll make them aware of it and get them out there ASAP, yes.
Okay, good. All right, well, and then Mr. Swenson had, some mixed scheduling results, and I could see where he was pretty frustrated that he had this contractor come all the way down 4 separate times, and finally on the 4th time, he was able to get the work done that he needed to do, but it cost him an extra $2,500. What's our response to that?
Sure. Sadly, because there's so many projects in my head, could we ask Mr. Swenson what the details were on his? I can't remember if it was a home remodel or if it was utility work.
Good question. He didn't know. He didn't say.
Mr. Swenson?
It was just putting in a new line and water from the house, from our house to this middle of the street.
Okay, so it was sewer and water work,
Part of the project.
private sewer and water work. Okay. All I could say is, first off, we're sorry. That's the first thing. The second thing I could say is that there isn't a lot of effort that goes into trying to coordinate between the city's contractor and the private homeowners as they do their work. We do a rather aggressive job to try and have that private work done such that the street contractor could come in and make their time, since time is money for them as well. And not remembering all of the details of Mr. Swenson's work, what may have occurred is that the street contractor may have been doing something that they were going to be slowed down if Mr. Swenson was there. I'm not sure if Mr. Swenson, if Carter Schilze and you had been talking and trying to coordinate things, but certainly something got too close to each other. And a lot of effort is made to try and avoid that. And I don't recollect really any other stories out of this neighborhood where that occurred. So it's a testament to the program. And again, all I could do is say we're sorry, and it's something we continually keep an eye on in Richmond Hills and St. John's Park. Wherever we've been doing this, we always try and keep an eye on that and minimize it.
I've had a couple of folks down in that neighborhood tell me it's the best construction experience they ever had, and I think Mr. Swenson alluded to it in part. I can see where he's very frustrated about having to spend an extra $2,500. Anyway, let us think about that one. This directly involves you, this next question, and so I think we're all eager to hear on the council and also the folks in the audience why the outside engineering costs were so high relative to other projects that were performed in the same period of time. So I think they pulled data together to show that it was 20.6% of the total project cost down in their neighborhood relative to some of the other neighborhoods where the engineering costs were 8% of the total project cost. So when you start talking about engineering costs, first of all, why yours were so high relative to other engineering costs for other projects, what's your answer to that?
Sure. Let me first say that when we are invited to submit a proposal for a project at the City of Edina, we're generally called upon because, as is any consultant for Edina, because there's technical expertise or some bench strength that the city believes it needs to apply to the project. This was no different. There was technical expertise and bench strength that was needed. So we come in and we do that work. We are competitive with all of the other firms in the metro area. We range anywhere from 17% to 21%. I took a look at some projects today just to check my numbers. We are competitive, as is indicated in this economy. You better be competitive or you will be out of business. But nevertheless, we are a company. And I'm not sure, Wayne, maybe you could address some of the city engineering costs that we're being compared to. I'm not sure that it's apples to apples.
Well, I think that if we knew why bench strength was needed for this project relative to some other ones, what was different about this one that needed a outside attention. I think that could help us understand it better up here, and it could help people in the audience understand it better as well, because on the face of it, it looks pretty remarkable that there's such a cost differentiation for engineering services. So.
What, Mayor and Council, what staff looks at when we're looking at projects of which ones that we would essentially farm out to a consultant are the ones that need a little bit more technical expertise on. On these projects, you had a lot of trenchless digging, pipe bursting, those types of aspects of it. You had a close quarters on for the project itself. So those, when Mr. Pasco refers to more bench strength, or however you referred that to, is that's what we look at for the project. So similar to the state aid, like West 70th Street, that was a complicated project with the gas service and just coordination of the 70th Street. Tracy Avenue is another one. West 44th Street. Those were all done by outside consultants. And those comparably, West 44th Street had 21% engineering. West 70th Street was 17%. On those, I don't have Tracy with me, but so the 17 to 21% is more in line. I think that our numbers are actually low that we have in-house. What we're not seeing on some of those after we started looking at it in more detail is some of the overheads not added into those lower numbers. They actually should be in the future. If you recall, when we did the Highlands assessment about 3 or 4 years ago, we were actually using a percentage number, about 15% or so, on those projects, and we were sued basically on that, so that we went to a direct charge, and we still have a lot of bugs internally to work out in our accounting system. One is to go into electronic time cards, essentially, so we can track these numbers, these projects a little bit closer and such. So I would say that the numbers that you're seeing for the engineering on this project are correct, and the other ones are probably a little bit lower than we'd like them to be on those that aren't capturing of all the other costs that we have.
The other component of that engineering cost was how you allocate it. You know, what are you allocating for is maybe another way to put it across these different projects. What kinds of costs are you adding into the project total that we expect the neighborhood that's benefited to pay for?
Some of the ones, like I say, the more complicated ones where they need more service in the neighborhood with just coordinating different parts of the project itself. I'm not sure what it.
Are you asking the separation between what the resident pays and what the city takes on? Is
No.
that your question?
Are you saying as related to street improvements versus sewer versus water, how much engineering time goes in each component?
I think the way I understood the question was they were wondering how it's determined what engineering costs you're going to allocate to a particular project.
Right. Well, actually, for all the other projects, like this one in particular, anything that's time spent on the project, even staff time spent, is charged towards that project itself. So we actually have, even though we hire a consultant, we still have a staff person that's assigned to oversee that consultant and attend the weekly meetings and such. So their time alone, if you see on the spreadsheet a staff time, that's what that time is. On the other projects, it's any time spent on the project. From a staff perspective, is charged directly back to those projects itself.
And that's something we do on every project?
That's correct, yes. Yep.
Okay.
City Manager Neal?
Yeah, Your Honor and members of the council, I think that one point that I want to reiterate that Mr. Houle made that I think it really gets at the crux of this comparison is the city's reaction to the Highlands lawsuit. That prior to that lawsuit, the charges were comparable between what we charged for city staff engineering and what the private side was charging for engineering. I don't think Mr. Pasco's firm is overcharged, I think, in the sense that we on the city side have undercharged, but it was because of that response to the lawsuit that the city, instead of just charging a kind of a generalized 15% of costs for a project, came back to become very precise about what it was going to charge, and the precision got all the way down to the hourly cost of the employees involved, which really drove down the total cost of engineering quite far because we were only using the hourly costs of those employees and not attributing any overhead or fringe benefit costs or any of the other kind of total compensation costs to them in an attempt to be more precise with those charges. And that really has led to this difference where there's been the private side engineering costs have continued to be around that or a little bit higher, and the city's costs have dropped considerably as a percentage of projects.
And so where you have a more technically complex project and we have to outsource more, we're going to be within the normal range, but it's much higher than the staff allocation on a normal project.
That would be true.
Yeah.
And you know, in our custom here over the past few years has been to assume to try to conduct more projects than we have staff for, and we don't staff for those peak staffing levels. We staff for what we consider the normal level, and we use outsourced engineering to cover our peaks, and that's not an unusual staffing pattern at all. So if we were to try to conduct only those projects that we can do with our own staff power, we'd do considerably less projects each year. That would be the outcome of that. And we'd probably still have to outsource some anyway in terms of specialized services.
Mr. Knutson, in the cities that you represent, is this a fairly common sort of practice of charging for engineering services?
I don't know any city that doesn't.
Pardon me?
Mayor, I don't know. Every city charges that as part of the cost of the project, yes.
Right.
Everyone I know of.
There was a
Mr.
question
Crabtree,
on costs.
yeah, Mr. Crabtree, I thought he's raised an issue that has come up before where you have gone out with the best of intentions from your department and tried to tell folks, here's what we think a cost might be for your private sewer replacement, your line replacements, and you can wait and see what a contractor might charge that would work with the city, but I know some people are they're eager to get at the project and get it done, so they're all set when the street work starts. They'll go out and hire a private contractor, and then you end up sometimes in situations where the private contractor ends up charging them more than a contractor that you arrange for through the city that serves many of the homes in the neighborhood. It looks like that's what happened here. And I'm just wondering what we can do about that process to try to cure the problem of having people's expectations. You know, they've got an expectation that something's going to cost in a certain range, and it ends up when we bid it out to serve multiple locations, it's a lot lower cost, and they've gone ahead and already spent the money. Let's say $4,500, and now it comes back, and most of the rest of the neighborhood is going to pay $1,500. How do we cure that problem in the future so that maybe people wait until we get an actual bid before they go out and find a private source based on what we've told them early on?
Right.
That's a criticism of you. I know you're trying to do the best you can for
exactly,
people, and this is a process that you've refined over time, but there's still some bugs in the system, I think.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor and Council. You know, this is the second of three projects that we required the upgrade of the sanitary sewer from the main line to the right-of-way line. We started out in the country club, which had 550 homes, and probably about 96 or 98% of the homeowners actually had the contractors upgrade their lines prior to the contractor getting there.
That's right. Out of those 555, only 67 had the city's contractor do it. The other 488 had their private contractors do the work.
So when we came off of that project, we were anticipating that we would have similar results on the Minnehaha Woods project itself, and we actually did have those results. But the contractor that bid the project, as we go with the lowest responsible bidder, actually bid the open cut portion of it. There is both trenchless technology and an open cut technology that was specified for those services, and they bid the open cut a lot less than what SEH had put down as their estimate. So by that time, a lot of the homeowners had already contracted out, and so when they, to not to go into too much length at this, is that when all the folks that actually utilized the city's contractor came back, there was the majority were just open cut and and quite a bit fewer. So when they took those dollar amounts and divided it up amongst the people that participated just on the city portion of it, it became a lot less. I think if the majority of the homeowners would have utilized the city contractor, that number would be a lot higher actually per service, because you would have been incorporating a lot of the trenchless technologies into the repairs than what we had for just open cuts. And it's really, I don't know if Paul can maybe simplify this a little bit more, but it's a complicated question, and we're struggling with it. The Richmond Hills was another one that had about the same results as Minnehaha Woods right now. I think we're going to have to sit down and have a lot more thought before we go through our next project on the sanitary sewers portion of it. The portion that they referred to as saying that you could save some money, what we refer to is that you could save money by going all the way to your home, right, not so much just to the right-of-way line. And that's what we're really trying to encourage is the homeowners to replace the entire line all the way to their home, not just to the right-of-way line. But we have no control on the private property of that replacement. So that's what we refer to as potentially saving money by going to your own contractor and spending a little bit more money to go up to the home itself.
Yeah, it seems to me that you really need to think this through, because I'm thinking too of Richmond Hills, when we've had some people write to us and say, they got right after it, hired a private contractor, and it cost them $4,500, and then if they would have waited, it would have been, much less than that.
Yep.
And so somehow we got to figure that out. That just doesn't seem right.
The one process change that we've made is that we will be ready the first week or so of December, which Manager Neal will be talking about towards the end of the meeting, with our public hearings for next year's projects. And that would mean that we would be out to bid in February, March. So we would have any numbers if we do have a project that requires that upgrade for the homeowner, so that they can make an informed decision going forward. So that's going to help us out in the future, is just the timing of the projects themselves.
Member Sprague.
Thank you. So I want to review the timing on this one, just to be clear. So the preliminary bids were submitted in March. I have someone provided a spreadsheet from SEH in one of the correspondence letters that listed the type 1, type 2 methods, and it's dated March 22nd. Okay. Someone else also provided a map that was given, but going off the SEH, it looks like at that time on March 22nd, you had, that's what you referred to in your email response as well, about 60% were type 1, or 73, and then the remaining 49 were type 2. And then at some point we receive updated bids, and what was the method for communicating the update to the residents, or is that the whole issue?
I think that was the whole issue, was it wasn't communicated to the residents with the updated bids.
And the updated bids came in when? So this tabulation of bids was March 22nd. When was the next update?
I've got that.
I'm trying to get an understanding of the first communication to residents about the cost is February 18th, 2011. That's where it says it's $4,500.
The next update after the bid opening was on April 22, stating that on April 5, the council awarded the contract to Palda.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
April 22.
April 22 is when you got the bid from Palda?
That was the next contact with property owners after the bid opening on March 22nd.
And at that point, there was no change in the bid amount of $4,500?
There were no updated numbers given there, no.
Okay. And when did we learn that the participation rate had gone on type 1 from 60% to the much higher number? What month was that?
It was an ongoing process as we were tracking. I'd say by the time we got to July, August, we began to see where these numbers were certainly trending.
And when did the construction work start on the sewer lines?
May.
Okay, so therein lies the issue. So we were not getting updated figures fast enough to stop people from going out and doing the work.
Indeed, when you look at the timing of these projects, to keep construction, street reconstruction in 1 year, to get through this many homes, 192 properties, to do something to the sewer and water service, if you wait until March 22 to begin the work, chances are you're looking at potentially 2 seasons of street reconstruction, because you have to allow that work to get done in the right-of-way before the street reconstruction can get underway in any substantial fashion. So that's the reason for trying to get as much information out as soon as we can to get the work going as soon as possible so that the property owners can be done with their work, so street reconstruction can get underway and be completed in 1 season.
Hence pushing it back, because we need to get the final bids before May so that we can tell the people, okay, here's the final number, make a decision, use our contractor, go out for bid yourself.
Right, and then keep in mind too that that's kind of it's hard to give a firm number because you do not know how many residents of the type 1s and type 2s that are going to participate under that bid scenario, and then what if you have, let's say, 40-60% on that, you take that all those residents and then divide it up by 100 residents, essentially. That would be the special assessed cost, and that's what we did on this particular project. That's what we did on the country club project, was took the total costs of the sanitary sewer service repairs and divided up by the participating residents, which we came up with the number that they're being special assessed. So you see, if you have a lot of type 2s, which is a more expensive service, you don't know what the actual final number is until you have everybody pretty much done, or else they contract it out with their own contractors. So and then once those final costs come in, so that's why it's a pending assessment at $4,500 till we get all the final numbers in to know what the actual cost is.
So this is different than you get 3 painters out to estimate your house and they're firm bids and that's the cost. You have an approximate cost in March, but based on the number of people that took the contractor up on it and the amount of time that it took to do it, it's divided by those people, and that actually becomes the cost.
That's correct, yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yep.
So it's a very different process than what we're all used to as homeowners when we have work done on our house.
That's right, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think Member Sprague, with his timeline, is posing an interesting issue here, and that is that we knew at least what the estimate was going to be in March, but when the residents were notified in the end of April, there were still no new numbers provided to the residents, even by estimate.
It hadn't changed, correct?
Right. When you look at what we estimated lining to be, we were estimating $4,000 and $4,100, and when the bids came in, it was $4,000 and $4,100.
The open cut is $1,400 at that point.
Right. The open cut we knew had gone down from $2,600 to $1,400, but we also knew that the majority of the work out there was going to be probably cured in place pipe. Probably.
So your original on the public notice, the February 18th, when you said $4,500, you had already assumed more type 2 work at a slightly higher bid price.
Right. And those are assumptions.
And even in March, the assumption still, even though the all of them had come down slightly, the ratio in your mind was still about the same. You assumed more type 2.
Right, because the deadline to complete that work in what we were calling stage 1 wasn't until May. So there was a lot of people still programming what they were going to do.
So when you work with a construction company like this, do they always work as a group cost and then divide it out, or do they ever give an individual price that's the price, or then do you lose the advantage of the group part of it as to getting a reduced rate? I'm trying to think of going forward, what makes it work better for the homeowner part of it is the timing and the communication, I can see that, but I'm just, what do you,
Well, going forward, though, you're always going to have that issue of the city needs to estimate their small portion, and then the homeowner needs to say, well, should we just do the same thing, do the whole thing, the whole line? And they're going to rely on that number. They need that number to make that decision.
And each neighborhood's going to be different because
Right.
the type 2 is based off the depth of the main line itself. So in the Richmond Hills, I think there's only a handful that are deep sewers.
Right.
This case, there was a lot more of the type 2 deeper sewers. Some cases, they're all going to be a type 1, so that would be an easy one to actually nail down an actual cost on it.
But you knew, I'm still confused here. It seems to me that you knew in March what the type 1 and type 2 costs were, but you didn't convey any of that information to the neighborhood so that they could make up their mind of whether they wanted to be in or out. So by the time you started doing sewer work in May, they'd already made those commitments. If they'd have known, it seems to me, if they'd have known in March or early April what the type 1 and type 2 costs were, they could have made a decision on which way they wanted to go.
Mayor,
So,
at that point, they did know the cost estimates hadn't changed that much. What changed from March to May was, actually July and August, was the ratio of type 2 to type 1, and that's what made the cost go down. They had assumed, even in March, yes, the cost per type cut had gone down slightly, but they still assumed the same ratio, that there would be more type 2 than type 1, and therefore a higher cost. Later on, a couple months later, July, August, they found that they had more type 2 or type 1 than they originally thought, and so the cost drove down. So it was more about the ratio, how that ratio changed between March and July.
And maybe a piece on the ratio itself, as City Engineer Hull pointed out, it was based off of Country Club. That was where this model began, correct? And when we looked at the fact that there's 192 REUs in Minnehaha Woods, we said, well, not everybody is going to use the city's contractor. So indeed, we start to take a look at the Country Club and say, well, what percentage of people used the city's contractor versus their own contractor? Because we have to start somewhere. And it felt like the Country Club was maybe a little aggressive, with 80-20. So we backed it off more to a 60-40. But that, too, is an estimate because you're trying to predict what people might do.
Someone in the correspondence mentioned about adding disclaimers as well, but I don't think it's about disclaiming that this is truly just an estimate and the ratio may change. I think it's about bringing it in earlier to coincide with the private individuals making the economic choice. We have to time it better for the resident to make the decision. We can, if the costs went up or down, and some people still might have a problem understanding that the preliminary number is just that, it's just an estimate. Mm-hmm. But if we can time it right and get that final bid in before they make that private decision, then it's going to allow them to have a better outcome. So that's what we need to do.
Were there other questions, Mayor, that you have on your sheet that we have?
I got to say, I'm still perplexed by this methodology. I just feel that, what are you saying, that you don't know whether they're going to be type 1 or type 2 until you get in front of a house?
No, we know based on the pipe data that we have from city records whether a pipe is greater than 11 feet deep or less than 11 feet deep, which is what drives type 1 versus type 2. That's the easy part. The hard part becomes how many of those property owners will choose to do it on their own versus choose to do it using the city's contractor. If we put a value in the bid form that is wildly inaccurate, the bidders will come back and say, well, wait a minute, you said there were going to be 100, now there's only 2. So you have to give the bidders some sense of what reality might be when they get out there, or they're going to claim that their bid is inaccurate and come back and renegotiate. So we look at past projects to try and get a feel for how many of those property owners are going to really use that city's contract, Edina's contractor, or are going to go off on their own. And that's the hitch. That's the hard part. Choosing type 1 or 2 is simple. It's that ratio of who's going to do what that's very predictive, and it's an estimate.
Now, in Richmond Hills, we had a different problem because we had an anomalous bid. That was the main issue there, where we used past data to model the estimate, and then this person came in wildly low. And so there was a surprise as well on that side, but for a different reason, it sounds like?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I hear you saying is that the homeowner really wasn't given a choice whether they wanted to go cure in place or open cut.
It's the depth of the pipe.
You had that figured out.
Right. And that was...
And you knew what the estimates were going to be for cure in place or open cut.
We had an idea of what the cost might be, right? And that was at $4,500.
Then why wouldn't you go to the neighborhood right away and say, you're a type 2, you're a type 1, you're open cut, you're a cure in place. Here are the options.
We did. That did happen. There was a map that was published that some of the property owners alluded to. So they knew as early as...
It's February 18th, I think, is the map. If it went out with that correspondence, then it was February 18th.
Well, you didn't get your preliminary estimate from PALDA until March.
Right. The estimate that was published with the feasibility study was based off of past work, Country Club, okay, and what we felt would happen again based on conditions being somewhat similar. But we didn't have PALDA's bid until March, that's right.
You needed to know the participation rate faster, is what it comes down to, correct?
Well, how can you know the participation rate faster when you don't tell them what the choices are?
Well,
No, he did. No.
Yeah, sorry, folks. I should have pounded the gavel and said, don't do that. But
No,
I
what
mean,
I
really,
heard March 22nd, is that correct?
well, you had
With
April
the community?
22nd for resident notification, no new numbers to the residents.
Well, March 22nd
They knew
is
the number.
communication, they knew the numbers. So my
Yeah.
question to you, what determines whether you do an open cut or a cure in place? I'm going to assume it's the depth of the pipe, but could you tell me exactly how that works?
Sure. If it's less than 11 feet, and if there are no trees, edges of driveways, stairs, gardens, things of that nature, then it could be considered a type 1.
Okay.
And it could be a type 1 open cut, because you're not going to damage root zones, you're not going to damage edges of driveways, gardens, things of that nature. If it's 11 feet or less, but it's under a mature elm tree or oak tree or something that has value to the property owner, we're going to call that a type 1 cured in place pipe.
Type 2.
Type 2.
Type 2 cured in place pipe. No, type 1 CIPP, because it's still less than 11 feet deep.
Oh.
It's just that it has an obstruction overhead.
Got it, yeah.
Right?
That's the hybrid, yeah.
Right. If it gets greater than 11 feet deep, okay, then we're saying we don't want that big of an excavation out here regardless. So it's going to be cured in place pipe regardless, once it gets beyond 11 feet deep.
Can I ask 2 follow-up
Yeah,
questions
go
to
ahead.
this, please? So this tabulation on March 22nd, and is that the first time that the difference was shown between the three, one CIPP and 2 CIPP? Was that the first communication of the difference between 1 and 2 was March 22nd?
No. Internally, we've known what the type 1 and the type 2s
Totally
were.
get it. What I'm trying to get at is, when did you tell the residents in that community, 1, what the costs were, and 2, what kind they had at their house?
February.
Okay. And so that answers your question, Mayor, that in February they knew what kind they needed and approximately what the cost might be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think I had that in my head, but I still feel like you knew where you needed to do open cut, you knew where you needed to do cure in place, but
Right.
there was no communication with people saying, hey, the more we get, the better, in a way, and they're going to drive the cost down. So that's what bothers me, is that people had no way of making an informed decision, because all they knew was that you might be better off doing it privately for $4,500, because that's what it usually costs. and now all of a sudden it's $1,400 for open cuts.
And based on how we did it in the country club, it was the same idea. We did not convey to property owners a type 1 versus a type 2 in the country club either. We viewed it as this is a neighborhood project, so the cost of the sewer is totaled up and divided by, and we come up with numbers. I mean, it was a policy that we rolled forward with out of the club, and that was how we've proceeded into Richmond Hills as well. But we have not, to date, Wayne, as I recall, come out and talked about the cost of a type 1 versus a type 2 when it's also estimated. We stick with a number, a best guess as to where we're going to be, which in this case was $4,500, and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, none of us are unmindful of the fact up here that you came in at a number that's $1,500 roughly lower than what was preliminarily estimated. But this is really hard work to do. I mean, it's hard in the sense that no one likes doing this, especially assessing people. And so we worry about places we can save money, just like all these people are talking about. Where could we have saved them some money? And this feels like, even though we get this sort of, for me, I feel like we're talking in circles here. That somehow we could have saved them money on the cut from the house to the main line, and we didn't do it. And we could have saved Mr. Swenson some money by having a better coordination with his contractor, and we didn't do it. And I know that overall that was, people in that neighborhood would say it was a good interaction with the workers, but there are some places where some things could have happened that didn't happen that could have saved people money. And that's what we're trying to figure out here.
Clarification question.
Member Rendell.
Thank you. So if my math is right, which I think it is, on this map that we have that shows the neighborhood, and some are stage 1 and some are stage 2, by my count, there are 39 stage 2s and 153 stage 1s. Okay. Is it safe to assume then that whether you're stage 1 or type 1 or type 2, you might have called and hired your own contractor to do the work, no matter which stage you are, right?
Right.
1 or 2? Okay, so then it's probably safe to assume that if you hired your own contractor and you're a type 1 or stage 1, which is the less expensive of the two, 11 feet or less, you'll have a varying degree. You might not have the higher cost of a stage 2, but you'll have a higher cost in general than the 1,400.
Repeating that back to you, make sure I understand it right.
Mhm.
If you're in stage 1
Mhm.
and you're identified as a type 1,
Mhm.
and if you made a decision in February
Mhm.
to hire out that type 1 work to your own contractor, would you have saved money? Is that the question?
Well, would you have saved money, but are you still paying more than the 14? I guess what I'm trying to get at is the fact that there is a cost distribution in both type 1 and type 2.
Right.
Okay. And does the city contractor that was contracted work on both type 1 and type 2, or only type 1?
Both, type 1 and type 2.
Okay. And so therefore, there's a cost distribution in what the city contractor provided as well, but it's safe to assume it's lower in cost than the private contractor. Would that be a fair statement?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What we discovered here, in this engineer's opinion, was that on the type 1s, the contractor went very low with his $1,400. And I believe the reason, it's my opinion, the reason that contractor went so low was they wanted to do that work themselves to have better control over their right-of-way, so that they knew they could get the work done if it fell onto them and get out of the way, because they controlled their own forces to do that private work on a type 1. So, but in the case of a type 2, as we saw, or from what I heard from some of the property owners, it seems that we were in line. 4,000, that the city's contractor was in line around $4,000 to do a type 2.
Okay,
or a
that's,
type 1
that's really
CIPP.
where I was going, was to
Right.
get to some of those numbers.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, it's very complicated.
Well,
And
go ahead. Member Brindle, finish your thought.
No, I just think it's very complicated, and I'm not, I will just throw this out there, I'm not sure I'm ready to make this decision tonight, but we can keep talking
I'm going
about
to
it.
ask Member Bennett to go next, and I want to ask you a question.
I think we've been studying different aspects of this. It's a bit like that elephant. And one of the things that I've been looking at is the special assessment agreements, because they came to us twice last year. And the first time they came to us, we approved a relatively small number of them. I think it was about 10. There was one that had a problem with agreement of the content. And then a second batch came to us in September of 2011, and there were a number of problems with them, some signatures, correspondence of information, and we continued that matter indefinitely. In the packet that came to us on Friday night, those special assessment agreements were corrected, and so we now have ones that we received last September corrected, in addition a number of others. But looking at the final assessment rule, it appears to me that even that with the 10 that were approved earlier in 2011, we're still missing about 20 special assessment agreements. And I've had some correspondence with Director Houle today about this, what the impact is of this, of making some kind of decision on a final assessment rule when there are numbers for utility assessments that are supposed to be represented by a special assessment agreement, and we don't have the agreement. At least I can't find it. I can't find a record that we approved them. Again, only those 2 times on the calendar in 2011. In one instance, we approved a relatively small number. In the second instance, they were passed. They were carried over. So with that question, I guess at this point, I talked with Director Houle most recently about this right before the meeting, and I guess it's a question for Attorney Knutson. Can we even take action this evening on final assessment when there's a possibility that there are some special assessment for these private utilities for which we do not yet have agreements?
It would be difficult. So the special assessment agreements are not here, have never been approved.
I was marking them off as I saw them from the materials that came to us on Friday, from the materials that I still had on file from the ones that we received last year. Earlier today, before I corresponded with Director Houle, I came up with about 30 not represented by agreements. Director Houle reminded me of the action that was taken earlier last year. That was 10. I have those in my files. So now it's about 20, and also looked at the minutes and verified the action that was taken, the 2 dates of action, and the continuance of the matter in September. So at this point, there were a couple that were corrected earlier today as to amounts stated, and I think there was also correspondence between the agreements and the assessment roll that needed to be corrected for 2 of the agreements. But for 20 or so, maybe more, maybe less, and somebody else's records may be more complete than mine, but I couldn't find them.
But the numbers are in the assessment roll, but you don't have the assessment agreements.
Precisely.
You need the assessment agreements.
Okay. But I think we need to continue.
I think that'll take care of part of it. As Member Brindle was asking questions, it made me kind of think about this. I tried to get back to a simple way of looking at this thing. You were good about telling people early on that if you hire a private contractor, probably run about $4,500 to do the sewer and water, maybe just the sewer from the house to the street, to the main line. What I want to know is, did you ever tell them you might want to wait until we get numbers from the city to see what their contractor is going to charge us, to see if we can save some money by doing it all at the same time in the street and from the house to the street? Did you ever tell anybody that? It seems to me to be a simple, straightforward piece of information that you'd want to convey.
Mayor,
Did you ever tell them that?
Mayor, just to, on your point of question here, they didn't tell them it was 4,500 from the center of the trunk line to the house. They said it was from the trunk sanitary pipe to the right of way for 4,500. That's what they were disclosing.
But with that clarification, I mean, the core question for me is still kind of the same. Did you ever tell them, hey, you know, regardless whether it's a type 1 or a type 2, you might want to wait until we see what our bid's going to be before you make a decision on what you want to do?
Wayne, I'm trying to recollect.
You know, we, based off of coming out of the country club where the actual bid prices were a lot higher, we encouraged people to do it before because we had anticipated that the sanitary sewer service costs would come in a lot higher. Now, what happened with that contract? It became the same contractor that got both of those bids. They also had to have the bid in the Richmond Hills area, as they started shooting lower on each of those services, trying to get the private contractors out of the right of way. So that's what they've told us. So I think when you look at all the other bidders, they were much higher bids on these sewer service repairs. So, based off of coming off the country club project, we didn't say, hey, let's wait. We were encouraging people to get their projects done so we wouldn't have all these contractors running around, so we didn't have an issue like the one gentleman had out in the right of way itself.
Based on the testimony that we've heard and the information we've received and the fact that we don't have any, we're missing some special assessment agreements, is there a motion to postpone this to a date to be determined, subsequently determined?
So moved.
Second.
Is there an issue here, Roger, on setting a date certain, or can we postpone it indefinitely?
Since you've closed the hearing, you have 6 months to adopt the assessment roll.
Okay.
But then that would actually mess up your November 30th dates and other things. You don't have to set a specific date tonight, but you can.
Okay. All right. You need a roll?
Wait a minute.
Let's have a discussion.
Could we have a discussion, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
My apologies.
No, that's okay. One, I think it's important to let everyone know here that the opportunity to get up at a microphone is done. That doesn't mean that you can't email us, that you can't write us, that you can't call us, okay? We still take information from you going along. Two, my next question is, because we need notice, do you want to set it for the next city council meeting, and then if we don't have it, then we will postpone it from that to the next? Because I think for public notice that you want to do that, you don't want to not pick a date certain.
I agree. I think you should. You have a number of people here tonight, and you could give them some security about when you're going to reconsider.
So are you going to recommend October 16th, or are you going to recommend November?
Well, wait a minute. We're missing some special assessment agreements. I mean, can we round those up within 2 weeks?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so the next
16th of October
is 2 weeks from tonight.
All right. So is there a motion to postpone this matter until the 16th of October?
Been moved and seconded.
Well, I think
we had
it's been moved to
okay.
postpone it indefinitely.
Yeah.
Do you want?
Now I need a motion setting it for the 16th of October.
So moved.
So moved, second.
All right. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Did we get the same issue on special assessment agreements with respect to these other 8 matters? Do we know?
No, I don't think so.
Because these are all related to the sewer and water. Okay, next matter is proposed assessment for the Gulf Terrace neighborhood reconstruction. Improvement BA 355, Resolution 2012-122. Director Houle, you have this matter as well.
Mayor and members of the council, this is a final assessment hearing for the roadway improvements number BA 355, which is the Gulf Terrace neighborhood. The Gulf Terrace neighborhood is located just east of Highway 100 with Southview Lane on the south side and Gulf Terrace on the north side. The cost for this project, for the street costs, were $1 million for the street cost amount. Stormwater fund was $418,000. The water fund was $812,000, and the sanitary sewer fund was $222,000. Total cost of $2.469 million. The city utility costs were about $1.4 million, which were about 59% of the project costs. The assessment cost is $1.126 million. That comes out to $12,379.40 per residential equivalent unit. The estimated assessment cost was $12,471, and that's about a 1% reduction. Staff would recommend that you approve special assessment improvement number BA 355 per the attached assessment roll. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions for Director Houle on the Gulf Terrace matter? Okay. All right. I'm going to open this matter up for public hearing on Gulf Terrace, the proposed final assessment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this matter? Ma'am? Okay, we'll just hold on. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward? All right, we'll just wait a moment.
The one that's in the camera. I was going to pass the camera around before, but I'll give it to you. Sarah, tell me. My number 520, 515, and 516. Oh, is that small? I can go bigger. That's not, those aren't my pictures. I don't recognize that as. This will save my eyes. I got something wrong. This will save my eyes. I can't my face. 515, 516, and 520. That's not it. That was a nice birthday party. It's at the very end. It's at the very, I don't know how this works. Okay, if you go down, 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 down. It's at the very, very end. There you're at. Why don't we can start right here. We can give them a quick, can you see it? Oh, good, fancy. Let's use this, please. Oh, use this one then.
Okay.
I don't know.
No.
Hello, my name is Susan Kovnick, and I live at 4715 Gulf Terrace. And I really am here tonight to say that I wanted to share with you that I hope there's more to come, because I'm kind of confused by your statements that it was the best construction project they've ever been through. 10-second synopsis. Numerous times records had to be brought in to pull cars out of the mud during the construction period. And not to be over dramatic, but one 6 or 7 month old baby had to be evacuated out of a car. The mud was above the mud rail. The car was sinking in like that while we waited for a wrecker to come. And I have pictures of all of this. I didn't bring those tonight. I'm here because the past is the past, and I want to deal with the future. And I heard tonight earlier 10 inches weeds. I could show you pictures of weeds that are taller than a 4th or 5th grader that we have on the shores of Lake Harvey, which we now call Suicide Road. And I don't know who you're speaking to. I have not found one resident, one stroller in the neighborhood, whether they're a resident or come from 5 or 6 blocks away, that don't come up to me and say, what happened here? What is going on? So I just thought I would take the opportunity, if I can work this right, to show you. And you can see that there's water. The gentleman talked about the grass guarantee. The grass is dead. These pictures were taken July 29th, and we still had a lot of water at that time. There's water in the trench, but the grass is gone. This grass never had a chance. It never was green. And if we paid for that, we got gypped. These are all weeds that you're seeing here. I don't know if there's a marker here. This is the plantings that the city paid for to put in, or that we assessed or paid for to put in, are on our right. We have now gone and removed all these weeds, so that's why we took all the pictures. The neighbors got together. We took out all the weeds because we figured the city wasn't going to take care of it. We live in a jungle. We live in a mess. We can't see our lake. Nobody likes it. Nobody. I have found this child is like up to about here on me. That's the Lindbergh child. I mean, she is, and you can see that I don't know, my pointer doesn't, you can see how much taller it goes, a foot above her head. We're living in a mess. And all this is going to come across, it's coming into the lake. And the lake water is the worst it's ever been. These are all the weeds. We were trying to make sure we were taking just the correct weeds. And this is the mess we inherited. This is when it was new, this before the drought started. It was dead. You can see there's water, and gentlemen would come once or twice a week and water the weeds down here. We've started to remove the weeds here, but they never touched the grass. They never did anything about it.
Ms.
So this is what you're paying for.
Your time is up.
Okay.
So the main points you want to make is the grass, the landscaping, the weeds galore, grass is dead. Get some of that stuff shaped up.
It needs to be repaired. It needs to be fixed. It's not
Okay.
done yet.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing no one coming forward, hearing nothing from the audience. Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Director Houle, any comment about the landscaping conditions over there around Lake Harvey, or the grass?
Yes, Mayor and Council. On all of our landscaping, what we do is we actually quote these out or bid them out separately from the general contractor. And in this case, we had bid it out, and we actually have a 2-year maintenance agreement on it. And they're supposed to be stopping by about once every month to take a look at it and pull the weeds off of it. So we'll look into how often that they have actually done that this summer, and if they, as far as coming back and making sure that the weeds are pulled and it's maintained. I would suggest that no residents go into it and try to maintain it themselves, is that are paying the contractor, the landscape contractor, to do this type of work. It is that is a wetland type area, kind of a rain garden type plants, and we did have a professional landscape architect actually design that planting area. So it's I would say that it probably is looking about what it's designed at this point. It's not going to. It takes some time on those to basically take off in a wet environment like that. So for what I saw in the photos and what I've seen driving by it, I think it actually looks pretty good this early on in the life of bioswale basically is what it comes down to.
Member Sprague.
So when you say it looks pretty good, you're talking about the native plantings, not the weeds that have grown up around.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the contract calls for the company to go out there once a month?
I believe it's once a month. I'll have to double check on this particular contract that we had with them.
Just based on the height of the weeds, I think they're in dereliction of duty there. The sod, we already know we've had issues with that throughout. It looks like hydroseed is going to be the answer to a lot of these applications because the sod's just not making it.
Good, thank you. Do we have a motion relative to this matter?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2012-122, which is a resolution levying special assessments for public improvements in the Gulf Terrace neighborhood. Further discussion?
I will just say that I would like to just make sure that the comments brought forward are attended to, and then I'm happy to support this.
I think this was a new thing for us because we actually put this road reconstruction project off a little bit before we voted on it because the residents around there wanted something to be able to drain off to help the city part of the lake. If I remember correctly, though, the city part of that lake is only maybe about 25 to 35%, and the rest is homeowners' lawns going down. So our attempt at the rain gardens, and we have some, I think, special drainage pipe. Didn't you put in a catch basins that can be cleaned out
We did.
there too?
Yep. And the other thing on that is that I'll remind our environmental engineer to work with the neighbors or send something out, because the watershed actually has a grant program for neighbors to put in buffers around the lake, and that'll help out on the water quality of the lake also.
And I think part of this, though, is that it's changed in look from what they're used to, because we used to mow close to the lake before, so there was a flat spot before, and now you have this dip with these plants, and they actually grow higher than what they're used to looking at. So it does look different than what they had before, but the hope was that at least the city part would help to keep that lake clean, and then it was going to become tantamount that the homeowners who came down to the lake would need to make the next move, correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Comment?
Yes. Whatever lessons we can learn as we're implementing something like this from the City of Minneapolis or other entities, other governmental units that Minneapolis Park Board that have installed features like this. I know that it took quite a bit of time for the depression area at the northeast edge of Lake Harriet to sort of come into its own. And this year, it's been very useful to have, but it did not look for a long time what it looks like now. And then I think also Lake Hiawatha has had a lot of public change in the public space around it. So whatever we can learn from those entities, I think, will be helpful.
I think Burnsville, too, has had some good experience with these rain gardens, swales, in Bloomington. Yeah. Okay, good.
One more comment.
Sure, one
and
more
that
comment.
is in the months coming up to the start of this project, there were a number of neighborhood meetings, and in those meetings, for residents who are tuning in to listen to what we have to say about this, just a reminder that those watershed grants are available, and to help you with how to manage your turf in a way that is healthy for Lake Harvey. And the watershed district is there to provide that information for residents, so it's important you make use of that.
Good, thank you. Roll call, please.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Next matter is the proposed final assessment on the West 70th Street Neighborhood Reconstruction Project, Resolution 2012-123.
Mayor,
Director Houle.
if I may, my property is on the street, so I have a financial conflict, so I'm going to recuse myself and step outside.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is the final assessment hearing for roadway improvement VA 367, the West 70th Street roadway improvement. This portion of West 70th Street is found between Highway 100 and France Avenue. The total street costs that are applied towards the special assessments is $496,000. We had a municipal state aid cost of about $2 million on this project. Stormwater fund is $582,000, and the water fund is $99,000. Sanitary sewer fund is $20,000, for a total project cost of $3.1 million, almost $3.2 million. The city utility costs were about 16% of that cost, which is about $702,000. The assessment cost is $511,000, $511,316.51. The cost per residential equivalent unit is $3,706.54 per residential equivalent unit. The estimated assessment was $3,795 and 70 cents for the estimated assessment, which is about a 2% reduction. Staff would recommend that you approve the special assessment improvement number BA367 for the attached assessment roll. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for Director Houle? All right. I'll open this matter up for public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and testify regarding this proposed final assessment? Seeing no one coming forward, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. We close the public hearing on the West 70th Street Neighborhood Reconstruction Project matter. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. All right.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2012-123, which is a resolution levying special assessments for public improvements in the West 70th Street neighborhood. Further discussion.
Just a comment that this really was an innovative project for us. We put in place a number of things that improve the roadway as well as how the roadway is used, that hopefully benefits the entire community, and the beautification that continues to be improved along 70th Street. I think is just, I've heard some great comments about it from people who are west of it, west of Highway 100 as they go east, to using 70th Street are really pleased. So I've heard lots of good things, and I think it'll, as these landscape projects do, it'll continue to flourish and fill in.
And the other comment I heard is the improved livability on the street, the reduction in speed. I don't know about volume if that's been affected, but even in the adjoining neighborhoods, I hear comments from people about how appreciative they are of the calming effect that the work has had that was done over there. So, thank you to you and your staff and everyone else that worked on coming up with a plan that seems to be working well.
We also have to give credit to Mark Peterson with the Cedars of Edina. The Cedars of Edina actually donated the black-colored boulders that are found in the roundabout. So probably at the next meeting or so, we'll ask Mark to come in and give him an applaud for donating those boulders. That probably saved us $10,000 to $15,000 alone right there.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, we need to do a roll call here.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. And Member Sprague may return to the dais, whoever he is. Oh, track him down somewhere out there. We can start the next presentation, I think. Next matter is the Carson's Hill Neighborhood Reconstruction Project, Resolution 2012-124.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, this is the final assessment hearing for the roadway improvements number BA370 for the Carson Hills neighborhood. The Carson Hills neighborhood is found just north of Vernon Avenue and east of Blake Road. The street costs are $1.1 million. The stormwater fund is $352,000. Water fund was $150,000, and the sanitary sewer fund was $180,000 for a total cost of $1.8 million. The city utility fund costs are about 37% of the project of $683,000. The assessment costs are $1.2 million, which equates to $7,743.20 per residential equivalent unit. We had an estimated assessment at the project hearing of $9,300, which is about a 17% reduction. We do have one property owner that has submitted a letter of objection from Chris Johnson of 5308 Highwood Drive. That's in your packet tonight. With that, staff would recommend approve special assessment number BA 370 per the attached assessment roll in your packet. But that'll take any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Houle? Member Bennett?
Yes, thank you. Director Houle, I had a question about REUs that you responded to in writing, but doing a manual count, I still don't come up with the number of REUs that are reported on this. There was a property that was identified as one REU in the preliminary assessment roll. It is included in the final assessment roll, but the number is blank. And your email to me stated that it is one house on adjoined properties,
Right.
but then the count is off because there are 160 homes reported or properties reported at one REU each, 160 REUs, with 3 properties at 1/3 REU each for 1 REU, making a total of 161 REUs, not 162. But I think the total stated, at least on the analysis of assessment, is 162, which is the same number that, again, was reported with the preliminary assessment, but then it included that property that now has no assessment.
Are you talking about the 6100 Idlewood Drive property?
I am. 6101.
With the zero?
Right, with the 0 and the blank.
6101 is then listed again 2 dots.
But the count, manually counting the number of properties, which is what I did for every one of these, it doesn't come up to 162.
Okay.
It comes to 161, unless there's a number for that.
Oh, was that this other one?
On the preliminary assessment roll, that property was, those property owners were listed at 6101 and 6105, and an amount was given for each of those properties. Now it appears as 6101 and 6101, but with only one amount stated instead of the 2 amounts that were stated in the preliminary assessment roll. And again, I asked these questions by email, but it just,
Yes,
it would appear that some adjustment needs to be made in the total number of REUs.
I believe it's actually 161. My email back was incorrect at 160, so I believe it's supposed to be 161.
Does that then
REUs.
change the amount per property, since the amount of assessment per property is a division of the total number by the number of REUs?
No, I do not believe, because I don't believe in this formula that the 162 that you see in the analysis of assessment is linked into the formula. So it's actually based off of this assessment roll, which they've cut off the total numbers at the bottom of the assessment roll. So the 7,743.20 would stand in my opinion.
Can someone check the math on that?
I'm doing it
He's
right
doing
now.
it right now.
Okay, thanks.
I 774320 is 162 into the total, not 161.
If you could wait just a second, I'll pull up that, our spreadsheet on it.
I get if it was 161, it would be 77.91.29, which rounded up is 30 cents.
What was that number again?
77.91.29.
Yeah, rounded up at 77.91.30.
30?
Yep.
So if that's what it ends up being, Mr. Knutson, do we have to re-notice this thing?
I think you can have a small adjustment.
If the amount goes down, you don't have to notify them. If it goes up, you do.
It goes up $30.
$50, almost.
Yeah, almost 50.
I'll double check, but I believe you have to re-notify them.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I
You
think...
wouldn't have to have another hearing, you just have to tell them what you did, the change.
Right, there has to be notice.
What I'd like to do is if you could continue this to the next meeting like the previous ones, and we'll take a look at these numbers and
Okay.
make any corrections. If we have to re-notify, then we can do that.
Okay, so just to verify though, if we've closed the public hearing part of this, and we continue this until the 16th, when do we notice the residents that there's been a this $50 change? And do we do it before the 16th or after we vote on it the 16th? And is this still considered a closed hearing after it's changed?
Well, we haven't had a public hearing yet.
No, I'm just saying, what if we...
It is still a closed hearing. The hearing has been closed, and you...
Okay, so should we not have the public part of this tonight?
Well, you could continue the hearing. You already... No, you haven't closed the hearing.
No, I know.
So you can just continue the whole matter to the 16th.
That's what, and is that what you would recommend that
Yes.
we do?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I'm sorry, if I wasn't clear, that's what I was
No,
asking.
you were clear. All right, is there a motion to continue this entire matter, including the public hearing portion of it, to the 16th of October?
So moved.
So moved.
Second, moved and seconded, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. Next matter is the
Can I
Clarny.
just ask one question? Was there someone who sat through all the other ones that was waiting to talk on this particular matter tonight? Okay, that helps, thank you.
All right, Clarny Shores Neighborhood, resolution number 2012-125.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, this is the final assessment hearing for the roadway improvement number BA 371, the Clarny Shores neighborhood. Clarny Shores is located just south of Vernon Avenue, just east of Gleason Road. The street cost is $509,000. The stormwater fund is $250,000. Water fund is $72,000, and the sanitary sewer fund is $109,000, for a total cost of $941,000. The city utility fund cost is about 42% of this project, which is about $432,000. The assessment cost is $554,000, which equates to $7,196.73 per resident equivalent unit, and the estimated assessment was $9,700, which is about a 26% reduction. With that, staff would recommend approve special assessment number BA 371 per the attached assessment roll. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Houle? Opening this matter up for public hearing, is there anyone who wishes to testify regarding this matter? Seeing no one coming forward, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing regarding the Clarny Shores neighborhood potential final assessment. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adopt Resolution 2012-125, levying special assessments for public improvements in the Clarny Shores neighborhood according to the special assessment roll that's attached. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. All right, next matter is the Macaulay Heights neighborhood Reconstruction Project, Resolution 2012-126. Director Houle.
This is the final assessment hearing for the roadway improvement number BA 372, Macaulay Heights neighborhood. Macaulay Heights neighborhood is located essentially south, the southeast corner of Highway 62 and 169 off of Macaulay Trail. The street costs were about $140,000. Stormwater fund was about $24,000. The water fund $32,000. And the sanitary sewer fund was about $18,000 for a total cost of $216,000. The city utility fund costs were about 35% of the project at $75,000. The assessment costs were $169,683.31. Which equates to $6,476.46 per residential equivalent unit. We had a $7,000 even for an estimated assessment at the project hearing, which is about a 26% reduction. Staff would recommend approving special assessment improvement number BA 372 for the attached assessment roll. That'll take any questions you may have.
Questions for Director Houle? All right. No questions. This public hearing on this matter is now open. Anyone wish to testify regarding this proposed final assessment? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2012-126, levying special assessments for public improvements in the Macaulay Heights neighborhood, according to the assessment roll attached. Further discussion? Roll call.
Member
Please.
Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Next matter is the proposed final assessment for the Oscar Roberts neighborhood. Director Houle.
This is the final assessment hearing for the roadway improvement number BA 373, Oscar Roberts neighborhood. The Oscar Roberts neighborhood is located just south of West 72nd Street, just west of France Avenue. The street costs were $305,000. Stormwater fund was $114,000. Water fund was $124,000. Sanitary sewer fund was almost $96,000 for a total cost of $639,000. The city utility funds actually picked up 52% of the project at $334,000. The special assessment cost was $358,000, $757.60, which equates to $4,429.11 per residential equivalent unit. We had a $5,200 at the project hearing, estimated for about a 15% reduction. Staff would recommend approve special assessment improvement number BA 373 for the attached assessment roll. That'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for Director Houle. Member Bennett.
Director Houle, it appears that this had a higher percentage of utility costs than the other projects that we've considered this evening. What went into making that higher cost?
We had a couple of items that were improved in the area. One is that we improved the stormwater, the drain tiles that were put into the neighborhood, and so some treatment structures. And then the water area also had a redo of a portion of the water main in the south end of the neighborhood. So that's what contributed to the higher cost.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Houle? We'll open this matter up for a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to testify regarding this proposed final assessment in the Oscar Roberts neighborhood? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion on the resolution 2012-127?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second on the improvement in the Oscar Roberts neighborhood for final assessment per the assessment roll attached to the resolution. Further discussion. Roll call.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. Next matter, Director Houle, West 44th Street neighborhood reconstruction project and its potential final assessment.
This is the final assessment hearing for roadway improvement number BA 383, which is the West 44th Street project. West 44th Street project went from Brookview, or Brookside, I should say, over to France Avenue. The costs were about $211,000 that were applied towards the special assessment analysis. Our municipal state aid fund from the city of Edina was $651,000. St. Louis Park, since a portion of this was within St. Louis Park, we billed them for $406,000. And the stormwater fund picked up $490,000. The water fund was $603,000, and the sanitary sewer fund was $135,000 for a $2.5 million project. Our city utility costs picked up about 49% of the project at $1.2 million. Our assessment cost for the Edina portion of it was $218,566.21. We had a residential equivalent unit of $2,031.94. We had about a 5% reduction from what we predicted in the project hearing of $2,138. With that, staff would recommend approve special assessment improvement number BA 383 for the attached assessment roll. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Member Sprague.
Thank you, Your Honor. Director Houle, I noticed the state aid projects come in a little bit tighter on the estimate. What's the reason?
On the municipal state aid projects, yeah, one is could be a number of items on a municipal state aid. One is their prevailing wages that are required on a project, so estimating those are a little bit more difficult. The other one is we're seeing on some of the state aid projects and even projects in general that the costs are starting to come up on the project. So I think what you're going to see probably in the next few years is 5% reduction, not the 15 to 20% reduction on projects.
Thank you.
All right. This is now open for public hearing and public testimony. Is there anyone that wishes to testify? All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Had a motion and second to close the public hearing regarding this West 44th Street neighborhood project. Discussion. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. And do we have a motion?
I move. Second.
Moved and seconded, we adopt Resolution 2012-128, levying special assessments in the West 44th Street neighborhood project according to the special assessment roll attached. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Or excuse me, roll call, please.
Member Brendel.
Aye.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. And then the last matter before us, Director Houle, and thanks for getting all this together for us. It's been a lot of work, I'm sure, for your office. So it's the Ridge Road neighborhood reconstruction potential final assessment there.
Yep, this is the final assessment hearing for the roadway improvement number BA 384 for Ridge Road. Ridge Road is located just south of Interlochen Boulevard and between Green Farms Road and Schaefer Road in the northwest part of the city. The street costs for this were okay, that's correct. Is $1.55 million. The stormwater fund was $771,000. No, this is incorrect. We have Minnehaha Woods there. I apologize for that. The
Do you want my copy?
the assessable cost was $261,622, with the proposed assessment at $10,606.30, with the estimated assessment at $11,000. With that, staff would recommend approval of the project per the assessment roll that's in your packet. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you. Questions for Director Houle? Member Sprague.
Was there a change? I saw a copy on the dais. Did I receive a copy on the dais? I have two of these. Was there a change? What was the change from the first to the second?
It was a correction, Member Sprague, of
Okay.
their accessible units in Unit A and Unit B, and Director Houle answered a question by email earlier today. It was difference between curb and gutter at the one end of the project, and there was already surmountable curb at the other end of the project. And so 17.67 units are in Area A, assessed at the higher amount, 7 units in Area B, assessed at a slightly lower amount.
Where there was already the surmountable.
Whereas
Okay.
where the first analysis presented them all as similar properties.
Okay,
Assessed
thanks.
at the same rate.
So if you zoom actually into this here, I was incorrect on my, so you had $10,930.82 for 17.67 REUs, and then $9,787.26 for 7 REUs.
And that's based on the fact that we actually put a different curb in for those 17.67 units, and there was a difference in cost from an average curb.
That's right.
And they bore those costs because that's what they wanted, correct?
That's correct. And the 7 units actually had an existing surmountable curb that they did not want taken out and replaced with the bulkhead curb.
All right. Any other questions for Director Houle on the Ridge Road Neighborhood Reconstruction Project? I'll open this matter up for a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and testify? Seeing no one coming forward, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing with regard to the proposed final assessment on the Ridge Road Neighborhood Project. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Carried. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2012-129, which is the Ridge Road Neighborhood Special Assessment for Street Improvements. Roll call, please.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Oh, Mayor Hovland, I'm
Aye.
so sorry.
Thank you. All right. Now, Part B of the public hearing agenda tonight, the certification of delinquent utilities. That's Director Wallen's matter. Back in front of us this year on this item, which is...
Mayor and Council, tonight is the second part of this public hearing on certification of delinquent utilities. This follows a different state statute. This is State Statute 444.075. Allows cities to charge against the owner, lessee, occupant, or all of them, and may provide a covenant for certifying unpaid charges to the county auditor with taxes against the property served for collection as other taxes are collected. Within the city code, 1100.05, 1110.05, and 716.03 allows for the certification of delinquent accounts if payment is not received within the time period provided in the notice, or if a resolution of the delinquent bill is not reached, the city may certify the delinquent balance to the county auditor. Utility accounts with balances over $50 and delinquent 15 days or longer were notified in writing of the pending certification. We deviated a little bit from this this year as opposed to prior years. Typically, it's a 30-day. We moved this hearing up 2 weeks, to get the same amount to hit the same delinquent people, we had to move up to be 15 days delinquent. That will result in higher numbers and higher amounts that were notified. Customers will continue to have opportunity to pay the overdue balance up until November 16th. A $30 administrative fee will be added to delinquent accounts. Certifying amounts will pay an interest of 6.5%, all are one-year assessments. As is usually the case, delinquent list includes properties from St. Louis Park. In this case, we have on the list 3 properties in St. Louis Park. In the past, we've also had Richfield properties that we certify for that are Edina properties. This year, there were no properties in Edina that use Richfield service, and those are pursuant to the agreements between the cities, both St. Louis Park and Richfield. The final delinquent list, the list that was attached in your packet for privacy purposes does not include the name and address, but there is an official list And the official list will be attached to Resolution 2012-130. The additional or the full list is also available at the clerk's office and in the finance department. In August, 950 properties, again a higher amount because of just the 15 days, were notified of their delinquent balance, totaling $382,346. In comparison, 2011, 688 properties were notified, totaling $439,641, with a final certification of 315 properties and $291,514. And in comparison, again, 2010, 709 properties received notices totaling $503,530, with 316 properties and a total of $337,523 being certified to the county. The recommendation adopt resolution 2012-130 certifying this year's delinquent utility bills to the Hennepin County Auditor for collection with 2013 property taxes. And with that, if I can answer any questions.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
We had a commercial establishment last year that had a really high bill. Are they caught up? Or are they the one that's $13,000 on this?
No, they are not. The commercial account that has been on the list and who had large balances the last 2 years is not on this current list. They are paid up and current with us, but they are not. They continue to owe Hennepin County as they have in the past couple of years. They are making payments and are looking for. I had called them this morning. They are looking to try to refinance, and they're looking at possibly within 2 weeks paying out the whole balance. That's what they said today. We'll wait and see.
So that's tax to Hennepin County that would then come to us? Is that what you're telling me, that they owe to Hennepin County, but they're paid up on their water bill?
What they owe Hennepin County is past certifications and their taxes. So they owe the 2,000, what we would have certified a year ago and the year before that is still owing at Hennepin County.
Okay, and I
remember,
see.
we entered into a specific repayment agreement with that particular customer, and they're complying with that agreement.
Okay.
Past delinquencies, once they're certified to the county, we can't use that as a basis to turn off their utilities. It's just the current delinquency that we can use to do that. But if they do make a repayment, in which they've told us that they plan to here shortly, we stand to benefit 230 or something like that, 230,000, something like that, John.
The amount that they owe that's to Hennepin County that's part of the certification is approximately 260,000.
Okay. When we were dealing with this last time, I had another commercial establishment that wanted us to treat them equally, and so I just was checking. And so then I'll go back to this $13,000 one. Is that a resident or is that a commercial establishment?
That is a commercial establishment.
Is it
and it's something that is somewhat recent. It is, but and it's relatively a long story. There were 2 adjacent properties. One of the properties was paying the other property's utility bill. They wanted their money back. The property that was benefiting temporarily was talking about that they were selling their property and they were looking to close. We paid back the property that had been paying, leaving this $13,000 bill that ended up on the certification. Supposedly, the property is still waiting to close on their financing.
So if it closes, we get paid?
That's correct.
Is it still being used as a business?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so we don't, because it's gone to certification, we don't turn it off, but we could?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any reason to?
No.
Okay, fine. I'll trust you to say no. Thank you. That was all I had.
Other questions? Member Bennett, did you have something? No. Okay. One of the questions I had, Director Wolin, is once we certify businesses or residents to the county, what's the average period of time it takes to get paid for the delinquent payments that are owed to the city?
The payments are 1 year, and so 90% of what we certify is paid either to us in around the July 1st area or the December 1st area for this first and second half payments. As I say 90%, there is a larger amount of this that is delinquent beyond the 1 year than most assessments or taxes. So this is something that we will collect the remaining 10% over a 5 or 6 year period after that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Director Wallen? I'm going to open this matter up for public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify regarding this matter? All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to close the public hearing regarding the certification of delinquent utilities. Discussion. All those in favor of closing the hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Do we have a motion on Resolution 2012-130?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adopt Resolution 2012-130, certifying delinquent utilities to the county. Further discussion?
I have a question. In the staff report, it says this year's number of notices in amount higher than prior years. And this year total is $282,000 based on the certification balance listed on the back. And last year was $291,000, so it's less than prior years.
The amount that we really would throw off the amount is last year we certified $121,000 to that business, the one business that had been referred to. So if you would take that out, which actually that was certified in May, if you would take that out, the actual amount is less for last year's in comparison to this year's.
I see. Thank you.
All right. We need a roll call.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Sprague?
Aye.
Member Swenson?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. Now we are moving on to the community comment portion of the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address an issue with the council that isn't on the agenda this evening? Okay. We'll move on to reports and recommendations portion of the agenda, and we have a resolution accepting various donations. We have a motion there.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on Resolution 2012-114. Discussion. All those in favor of adopting the resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Donations this period are to the Edina Arts Center, and the donations will be, donors' names will be posted on our website.
I see we have an anonymous donation for $23. Was that just someone dropping off a check for not $24, $23?
No amount of gift is insignificant.
Amen.
All right. Correspondence and petitions. Anything other than what we had on the dais this evening?
No, sir. It was a lot on your
It
table
sure
this
was.
morning.
Member Bennett, you have something you want to visit about in this portion of the
Yes, it appears that there
agenda?
is a piece of, an email that was sent to the council, or to you, Mayor Hovland specifically, that should be directed to the school district. It is concerning number of frequency of communications from the school district, and I just thought it would be helpful for us to make sure that that was directed to the appropriate recipient.
All right, thank you. And next, I need a motion to receive the petition from Dewtown regarding the park and playground at Lake Edina Park.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we received the petition of Dewtown regarding park and playground at Lake Edina Park. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. And then we've got some minutes, I'm sure all of you have read, and then mayor and council comments, and maybe Mary Brindle this time. Going
All
first.
right.
Actually, let me do it this way. Member Swenson.
A couple.
Let's mix it up.
Yeah, I actually have a list. I've adopted Member Sprague's. No. We've got a number of emails that asked us to comment and bring forth these things, so I thought I would just do it. It may cover other things that people might have to bring forward, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, but we have had several outdoor fire pits, and why do they have a bonfire at the high school for homecoming? We've heard about from one of the fire pit people before who lives in the west side of town, but we have a different one this time, and quality of air. So I'll just take note of that. We also had a fairly strong worded email from someone who's still upset that there are so many garbage trucks going down the road, and would hope that we would be like Maple Grove? Maplewood, who just went to one. However, we all know that it took about 9 months to a year of really strong work to get there, and I know that Energy and Environment has had that on their calendar for a while. And the other one was the yield sign at 61st and Kellogg that just had an accident at it, and I actually drove through it this afternoon just to see. Do we normally have a yield sign instead of nothing, or a stop sign? Because the yield sign seems to be not working for that neighborhood.
But that person also talked about speed, and stop signs don't address speed. But anyway, I'll let you.
I'm not thinking it would be. To me, it wasn't a speed-related thing because when you drive through there, if you're trying to yield, you do have to pretty much stop to be able to see past the homes and the bushes to safely cross the intersection. So my question is, should we have nothing there, or a stop sign, or would you prefer that we have yield, or would you like to send this to the transportation and the, whatever that committee is, to review it?
Traffic safety. We're actually going to be sending that to the traffic safety committee to re-review that, because there was a request for a stop sign a while back, and we turned it down because of lack of warrant. So we'll review it as far as sight lines and see if we
and
need
that's
to put a stop
basically
sign.
what I told her I thought would happen with it in my second email to her. Also, tomorrow is Walk to School Day at Concord, Highlands, and Creek Valley.
And Cornelia.
Cornelia, okay.
Is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yep. So pretty exciting. We all got that from our Dewtown coordinator. Having been one that walked my son to school for 4 years in a row, the Golden Retriever got more pleasure out of it than anyone. I want you to know that. And I assume we're going to talk about the bike lanes. So I'll just say I'd like to talk about where we are on the bike lane striping on Wooddale, but I'll wait and we can do that in a few minutes.
Okay, thank
and
you.
And then the only other thing, hang on, is that we got a note on the sidewalk by Countryside that got put in. My understanding is that we weren't going to have buses pick up there. Creek Valley, thank you. Creek Valley, but that we weren't prohibiting cars.
That's correct.
And this, she seemed to think that we were going to prohibit any pickups there. And if I look around all the elementary schools in Edina, we have a lot of public streets that do have student pickup on them because the buses are on the bus property picking up. So I'm not comfortable prohibiting no pickup there, but I do think we did talk about no bus pickup there, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
That's it.
Good. Member Sprague.
Thank you. Member Brindle and I went to this Minnesota Public Health Association, let's call it a health fair. It's called Healthy Minnesota Communities in Action. And we attended the poster session, which was kind of a trade show of these various programs going on around the state, followed by a forum. And we heard all about the great things that Dewtown is doing. I also picked up a few brochures on some other things going on, one of which was a nutrition labeling system that Coburn's has adopted, and that I also heard Lund's is adopting as well for their stores. It's a food nutrition index from 0 to 100 to help consumers make healthier choices. There's also some literature on SHIP initiatives, and the statistics are pretty amazing. Here's a few. Farm to School, efforts are underway to increase access to local produce in 367 schools in 22 school districts across Minnesota. At least 117 schools across the state are actively engaging in implementing safe routes to school. Edina is one of those school districts that's getting on board this year. 255 cities are working on creating master walk and bike plans. SHIP has helped 544 child care sites implement healthy eating practices. So a lot's going on. We're not the only people. Certainly we're on the vanguard with what we're doing with Bloomington, Edina, and Richfield, but the movement is happening all around the state, and it's a good thing. I went to a Oasis for Youth fundraiser. They're reaching out to homeless youth in the south and west suburbs, and it was a nice event. The video that they displayed was shot by our own Aaron Klein. So that was neat to see some of his work. And I had another call from a resident about Xerxes Avenue, headed southbound just before the Crosstown Bridge. Trying to, at rush hour, take a right and get on to 62, and there being some parked cars in the way there. So, Director Houle, is there a way to take a look at that, maybe refer that to Hennepin County? I don't know if there can be a no parking just at the end of Xerxes, so that the right turn movement people can get off and get on to Crosstown and have better access. But I told the person it wasn't our jurisdiction, but we refer it on.
Yeah, and the parking goes really late, because I just noticed it this week driving down there, and noticed that I went to move to the right lane to get onto the Crosstown, and there was a car parked there.
Yeah.
And I was kind of shocked they were allowed to.
Blocks things up.
We've actually been talking to the county and actually City of Minneapolis all summer long about painting a white stripe to identify the parking lanes, and then take a look at that right lane to put some no parking a few hundred feet back.
As you get, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, and then as we continue to stripe bike lanes, I think it's important that this winter the engineering and the ETC and Public Works kind of sit down and look at our bike facility standards. We've talked about some of that in the discussion of our bike facilities this year, but that would include bike markings, bike lanes, and different treatments, including extensions at intersections, and all the various things that have come up in this year's cycle as we've put a lot of new facilities down. But for the future, because we use different consultants on different bike projects, I think we want to do some thinking and choose some standards across the board, so that we can communicate those clearly to our consultants and have facilities that are universal, easy to understand. One example is the bike lane symbol. On 70th Street, we have a bicycle, and then we have the word lane and then an arrow. That's a bigger size treatment. And then in some of the new markings, we have just the bicycle with an arrow. And so anyway, across the board, we want to try to spec, the size and the type. I think with the when you're using the bike symbol, we want to make that as big as we can to fit within the lane markings, and so you'll figure that part out. And then in terms of Wooddale, I've been down there. I think probably all of us have been down there observing, and I was happily surprised today to see some evolution in the driving patterns. I think people are slowly catching on, as they have done with other new treatments like roundabouts. Sometimes it just takes some time, but that's part of being on the cusp of innovation, is you have to try new things. So that's all I got.
All right. Member Brindle and then Member Bennett.
All right. I have three things. Just a reminder to the community that the Community Bike Ride Tour de Edina will take place on Sunday, October 14th, noon, meeting in the Southdale parking lot closest to the intersection of 69th and France. and you'll see some tents, freewheel bicycle tents in that corner of the parking lot. There are 2 loops, and folks can choose to bike 1 loop or 2 loops as they choose to. 1 loop will one loop will go south and follow the promenade and come back to Southdale. So it is largely off-road, using crosswalks to get across the roads. And then the other loop will leave Southdale and go west and go around Lake Cornelia on the streets and then come back to the Southdale parking lot. It's largely flat. And so what we experienced last year at the tour was some of the families with young children did part of the route and then turned around and went back to the start. So on this one, being that it's largely flat, I think people will have some opportunity to go a little farther and enjoy it. And there are places to stop along the way. You'll be on the promenade with public art. Think Mutual Bank is donating all the food. So there will be healthy food snacks for the tour, and there will be food available at the start, the meeting point, as well as at the amphitheater at Centennial Lakes. So folks can kind of hang around, enjoy the park, and then bike back. So if you do the entire 2 loops, it's about 7 miles, and if you do one or the other, then you cut that in about half, I suppose. But it should be a lot of fun, so we cross our fingers for the weather. It is rain or shine. Had a situation in our neighborhood the first Wednesday of every month that at 1 o'clock you hear the sirens, and it occurred to me after a while that we weren't hearing sirens in our neighborhood. So I called, and we had a finicky siren. And so the fire department worked on it and finally said, you know what, it's got to be replaced. So thank you, fire department. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we're going to hear that. It's on the hill behind our house, so we hear it loud and clear. But it really was noticeable at how we were unable to really reliably hear sirens from other neighborhoods, which were actually pointed in our direction to see if coverage would be adequate. And so just to see if we could get what we needed to get. But if your house is closed and you've got a television on or you're working on something, you may not be alerted well enough without the loud of the siren. So thank you for taking care of that, fire department. Appreciate it very much. And then a Rotary project that really, I just want the community to know how far Edina reaches around the world, and Rotary is one of the ways that Edina reaches other parts of the world. There is an international grant project that's in process to provide used hospital and clinic equipment to hospitals and clinics in Panama. These facilities serve the native Panamanians as well as children and elders, and they're largely clinics that provide services for next to nothing or free, depending upon what the patient can pay. And so consequently, the facilities are poorly furnished. Some of the equipment doesn't work, and sometimes they don't have what they need. So Rotary in Panama has taken it upon itself to help to provide this equipment, and our Rotary in Edina got connected with this. And so our role in this is to fund the shipping of the equipment. So thanks to Rotary for its match. They match 3.5 times what we raise. So it's a great project, and I just wanted people to know about it.
Thank you. Member Bennett.
Thank you. Member Swenson raised several items that I had on my short list as well. And just to follow up, I think that we have code on outdoor fires that includes things like obtaining a permit in advance, how close they can be located to the property line, burning in certain wind conditions. And I think it would be helpful to our residents to publicize that seasonally and possibly provide information on the website or a link to the information. I'm not sure that everyone knows that the regulations even exist or what they contain. And then it might also help, I think it helps both people who have concern and then also neighbors who may not be aware of the impact and the rights that their neighbors have. So I just think that the information would be helpful to have out there. On the garbage truck issue, I've actually spoken on a panel with Maplewood, and I think important for people to know that at this point, I think the state process is a year and a half. Is it 12 or 18 months resolution by the council undertaking? And so when I have had calls about that, I am telling people that it is certainly something that's being discussed, but that there's also a set process in law. And I think we did get some good information in our quality of life survey about what people were concerned about in the community, both in the sense of single hauler and optional.
Councilman Bennett, are you referring to the notice period that you have to give the private haulers to?
Well, it's my understanding that there needs to be a resolution passed by the council of intent to organize, and that creates a process of different public notice, public hearings. And so for people who call and anticipate that their concern would create immediate action, I think it's important to understand that we're operating under state law that defines a very clear and formal process. With respect to the yield sign at 61st and Kellogg, I had that on my list as well. We actually had a yield sign at 40th and Lynn, and in the summer of 1993 had 3 crashes. In 91, our house was hit by a truck. We're the second house from the corner. And so I know sometimes that yield signs don't work, and sometimes even, fortunately, no one was killed, but in one of the crashes that took place at 40th and Lynn, it was an older woman who was T-boned, and there was an accident involving a school bus. So I'm appreciative that this is going to go back to the Traffic Safety Committee, and I too know that stop signs don't reduce speed, but they do, I think, sometimes carry a different message than a yield sign. And we also know that people drive through them, and that the people who drive through them tend to be the people who live in the neighborhood and are more familiar with the streets. So we know there's no panacea, and we know that often the traffic problem is people driving in their own neighborhood with that familiarity. With respect to the sidewalk at Creek Valley, I recall that conversation too, and I also recall some correspondence that we received after the council discussion from someone who drives buses that serve some of the special needs children in the community. And so I'm not sure that we can. What I would like to know or discuss is whether we can instruct the regular longer school buses to not use that street, because I think that makes sense. It sounded like it was filling a need for, again, buses serving a special need population. And then also some follow-up with the parents who are using that for stacking. We have had this issue, even though we know that stacking is done in other neighborhoods, we also know that there's been issue with stacking in other neighborhoods, getting too close to the stop signs, not leaving enough interval, not leaving the ability for drivers who are proceeding to be clear, for pedestrians. And the letter writer appeared to be describing an incident where cars were actually pulling into the intersection while children were trying to cross. So probably some work with the PTO of that school and also some work with signage. Sounds like it would be helpful. I attended the Edina Art Center the opening of their juried art show with manager Neal and Mayor Hovland and Member Swenson. I understand that you had been there earlier. It was very impressive and just a really nice and gracious event. We had to leave to go to the Met Council listening session, and Member Brindle and Mayor Hovland and I were able to attend that with manager Neal. It was, would you say, largely public officials? It had been, I think, well noticed, but I think it was an evening on which a lot of other things were happening, including that wonderful fundraiser for Oasis. But I think that the Met Council, as it continues its work, will have more opportunities for people to hear their plans and also speak about what they would like to see in their communities. And I think that's it.
We also got one other email about trees that I think, Mary, did you and I or Joni, one of us talked about, and you had said you'd looked at Minnetonka's tree.
Yep.
replaced, but she was upset because a tear down had taken some trees to build a larger house, and what could we do about that? And at this point, we really don't have anything that we can do about it.
Although it would be helpful, I think, I know the Planning Commission has it on its list, and given the pace of rebuilding in the community, I think it would be really helpful to look again at that and see what can be encouraged, if not. I know that there have been neighborhoods, and this is what I wrote in my email to the resident, that there are neighborhoods where people have banded together and either petitioned or written a letter or spoken with the builder to good avail. In this instance, it sounded like they had tried that and it hadn't been successful.
All right, thank you. Looking back over a 2-week period, I thought, well, there wasn't much that went on, but I looked at the calendar. There was all kinds of things that went on. Starting on the 20th of September, we had a Dewtown leadership check-in meeting, and when we looked at all the things we were working on in Edina, it made me feel good about the progress that we're making. I think I hate to brag, but I do think we're a little bit ahead of the other communities on some things. So I'll step up and brag to the town, I guess, with our Living Streets concepts and this park petition. And there's just a multitude of things going on that we should be proud of. And Catherine, thank you for leading this. And Sarah, you did a good job too. And then the issue on Xerxes, I actually went over and met with the resident that lives at the corner of Xerxes and the Crosstown. And I was able to secure a guy from the county to come with me from Jan Callison's office. And that resulted in the resurgence of a drawing, I think, that Director Houle has seen, which creates a parking bay. The problem is between the 6,000 block and the 6,200 block. It's become a de facto 4-lane road, people moving at high speed, and it's really only a 2-lane road. So I think the county is prepared to try to create some merge lanes and maybe make sure that there's no cars parking within about 200 feet of the entrance to the crosstown, so that you can separate cars into 2 separate lanes there. I don't know if this resident will be entirely pleased, but I think I spent an hour and a half with the fellow from the county talking about it, and we'll just have to proceed with this plan that we have, I think, for now. And then what was astounding to me is he waited an hour and a half to tell me he'd been burgled that afternoon, and he was so proud of the Edina police because they got there within 60 seconds, he said. And he had been told by one of the burglars that he came running out the back door of his house that there were people in there with guns, and so our guys appropriately arrived with guns drawn, and it was quite an interesting afternoon over there. On the 21st, we had the homecoming parade. I think I finally figured out how much candy to buy to make it through the whole parade route, and that's a big deal. 4 years it took me to figure that out, how to get all the way to the community center with candy from Costco. We had a Minneapolis-St. Paul Export Initiative meeting on Monday the 24th, and then what evolved out of that was an opportunity that we're going to be able to take advantage of here in Edina. And the Export Initiative group has created now a plan to help stimulate export growth in the small business community in the region. But some of the ideas that have been propagated, we don't know for sure that they work. So they agreed to use Edina as a pilot within the pilot, to see if we can help people that are already exporting, encourage people that aren't exporting to think about exporting. And the team is going to be, that's working on this, and they've caused some great, this has created some great excitement for them. The city of Minneapolis is going to help us with 2 of their economic development people. Of course, our economic development person, Bill Neuendorf, Lori Severson from the chamber, maybe Grow, Minnesota, which is the state chamber. And they're trying to set up a meeting now to get this notion rolling, to see if we can help folks. And there are some people in our town that have gone through this growth experience, including a guy named Jeff Ryan, who owns a company called Versaire, who has basically built a global business off the internet. And so I think he'll be good in terms of a teaching person that can help some of the businesses, whether they belong to the chamber or not. I participated on the 25th in a regional innovation cluster forum over at the Humphrey was on a panel with some people to talk about some of the work we're doing, economic development related. And then on the 26th, some of you may have been there as well. It was a sad day for all of us. The funeral for Dr. Michael Nanny, who was only 47 years old, down at the Basilica. There must have been 1,000 people down there. I was able to go to the visitation before I went to the chamber meeting. So our condolences to his family. Very, very sad day. And then Member Bennett mentioned the Art Center juried show, the listening session with the Met Council, and then on the yesterday, we had the employee recognition event at Braemar, and that was 2 sessions, very, very well done. Member Sprague was able to join us for the first session, and that was very nice to have him there. So on my list now of things, of concerns, are a couple of different things that have popped up. One is the Littell and Lynn open space project, and I think maybe member or manager Neil, you can talk a little bit about that, give an update on that. I think we're close to coming up with a revised plan. I got some folks for Edina Day of Service that want to help clean up Minnehaha Creek, and they're wondering if the watershed will just give us permission. Maybe Wayne, you can have Ross Bittner talk to me about this, to get down into the creek bed and actually work on cleaning up some of the creek bed now that it's dried up down at 54th and Minnehaha Boulevard.
Clean up like trash? Or
Clean up trash, clean up dead branches and debris that's in the creek bed.
I had a late afternoon exchange with Mr. Bittner about that, and there's no problem with it. So if they want to do it, they can.
Good.
Do it.
I'll let these folks know. Maybe you can give us an update on the situation we have at Valley View and Sally Lane with respect to tree removal. Manager Neal, any update there would be appreciated. And then I visited with some people over on in the Highlands neighborhood. I think it's on Lochloy, who have to now look at. I think Member Swenson's been over there too. Maybe some of the rest of you have to now look at this great big boulder wall that's been put in place by a guy on Skyline Drive, who again used city property to help put up this huge. I don't know if it's a retaining wall or if it's just a massive piece of landscaping, what it is. But what bothered me is that we approved the engineering report after the fact, and
We didn't pull a permit.
We didn't pull a permit, number one, and then they submit an engineering report.
We gave him a stop work order.
Yeah.
Then he gave us an engineering report. Then we approved it, and
Then he got fined.
And he got fined. Well, he paid
So,
a double permit.
What I'm
is
wondering
the
is,
fine
why wouldn't we treat this often like we treat projects that require a transportation report, where we get the engineer, we have them look at the project, we have them tell us whether it passes muster, and the developer or the homeowner pays for that cost, instead of just accepting their engineer's report. And especially in this circumstance where it came in after the fact, and now everybody at City Hall is telling people over there, well, it would have been approved anyway, you know. I mean, the whole thing has been kind of a rough experience for the people in the Highlands, and you can't help but feel for them for the way this thing came down. So something to think about there in terms of the engineering, getting our own engineering report after the fact and making the builder pay for it. I don't know if we've got that authority or not, but I'd sure like to do that. And then there's a single mom over on William. This happened about a year ago. There's a group home over there, and people were apparently sticking things down the toilet. So, I mean, in the sewer line, we found clothing and toothbrushes and other things. And of course, the problem for her is she's on the low spot on William, and everything backed up into her house. She had to borrow money from her mother to help with the cleanup in the basement. There's no liability on our part because there was no negligence on the city's part. And it brought back to mind the discussion that we had, I think it's over a year ago now, about creating some kind of a self-insurance situation in the city, where it would be a no-fault situation, where we could actually, through the utility fund, create a fund that would cover these sewer backup situations, and it would be a no-fault sort of situation, because we know when we have had these experiences that few people have adequate insurance. So I just want to raise the issue for a potential discussion at a future work session or maybe even at our retreat this winter. And it was hard to make the phone call to her and leave her a voicemail is what I had to do today to tell her that we weren't able to help her because we didn't have any liability here. So that's one thing I want to raise with the council. Let's think about creating some sort of self-insurance fund for sewer backup on a no-fault basis. And then I think let's have a discussion about Wooddale Avenue striping. I got a different view on this whole thing than others, so I think we should have a little discussion on it right now. Member Swenson wants to talk about it. Member Sprague has kind of given his thoughts on it. Be patient, I think is what I hear him saying. Director Houle, you might want to weigh in. Personally, I think we made a mistake. When I turned that corner at the bottom of the hill and turned right on Wooddale, I think people are going to be really confused. Even people that are using it regularly are having a tough time wandering into the bike lane. Personally, I think we ought to have a center line in there. We ought to get those dash lines out. We ought to leave the bike symbols. Some way we got to get people staying on the correct side of the road. But I may be a minority voice on this. I know Member Bennett and I have talked about it, and she wants us to be patient as well. But it's hard when you see people driving the way they're driving over there. I'm having a real tough time with it from a public safety standpoint. The other work, I think it's fine. I think we know it's all experimental. It's over a 2-year period of time. I just think we tried to do too much on Wooddale, especially between 50th and 54th. So I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say about the issue.
Well, I'd actually like to hear what Wayne would like to say, because I'm not where you are, and I'm maybe not quite where Josh is, but I don't know if I'm prepared to do anything because it would have to be the right thing if we were to do something.
Yep. We obviously we've spent a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time on observing traffic out on Wooddale and talking to Steve Clark from the Transit for Livable Communities has stopped out, take a look at it. Actually, some of the bike folks from the city of Minneapolis, from Sean Murphy's group, who has done a lot of these different innovative markings, and the city has come out and taken a look at it. And they've offered some comments. Steve Clark actually, his comment back was it's working the way they expected it. I think he's looking more from a cyclist point of view rather than from a vehicle point of view itself. But from the folks from the city of Minneapolis had suggested that on the difference between Wooddale and 14th, they didn't have this much input from travelers, if I can say that, from when they opened up the 14th Street project. And I think the difference of what they point out the difference is that they have parking on both sides on 14th Street, and it's fully parked, and almost 100%. As with on Wooddale, it's kind of intermittent. There's about 5 to 6, maybe 7 cars on a regular basis that parks along Wooddale. And so some of their suggestions were is to put something vertical in the parking bays areas. So where we've painted the bump outs, if you recall, we had a project that we had bid out some curb and gutter for the bump outs, and it came in too expensive. So we actually did a change order and painted the bump outs. That's what you see as the rounded portions at the intersections, and what we're going to be placing in those is actually a vertical post delineator in about 3 or 4 post delineators at each one of those intersections to try to bring that parking bay inward so that people are not apt to drive in the parking lane itself. The other item that we're looking at is, you're right, when you turn on any one of the 3 directions, from France or from 50th Street or Valley View, is that boom, you're into a different striping, different traffic control. So we're looking at putting some traffic control chain signs similar to what we have on Concord when we added the stop signs. Yep. We have a couple big orange signs that says traffic control change. The other item that we want to do is put a permanent sign that says either the bike boulevard or the bike advisory lane, so that people will notice that this is a different striping that you have on a typical roadway itself. And I think it's just what I've seen even in the last day or so is that people are starting to get more comfortable on it, and they're not crowding. The southbound folks are the ones that are kind of crowding towards the east. They're not driving in the bike advisory lane like they should be. So then the folks that are going northbound feel uncomfortable and are kind of edging towards the parking lane. So I think over time what I've seen is more and more people are actually straddling that dash line unless there's a cyclist present in the southbound advisory lane, then they're waiting and going around them. So my recommendation is don't change it up, don't eliminate it. Let's take a look at it for keep studying it for a couple more weeks or a month, and I think people will eventually get it. We're actually adding, the other item that we're going to be doing is adding another variable message sign going northbound that will be moving along the corridor, advising people how to travel the corridor also.
Member Bennett.
Director Houle, how many of the roadways in this city have a painted center line? It's my observation that actually a number of them, probably by far the majority of them, do not. And one of the things that I've been discussing with people is that for the last year, 44th Street, which has, I think, slightly lower volume than Wooddale, but approximately the same amount of volume, has not had any lines painted on it at all. There are some signposts that are indicating where parking is allowed, and actually on 44th to accommodate that road width with reconstruction, which was done carefully. That narrow width was preserved because of the very, very old trees. Parking was then given up in a number of places. And I know from attending the open houses that you held that parking is very important to the residents who live on Wooddale, and that's part of why the advisory lanes are being used rather than the bike lanes with the hard painted line, which people know more to recognize. But in order to work within that width and keep the parking on the east side of Wooddale, that's where the advisory lanes were used, if I'm correct.
That's right. Yeah.
What I've observed in the trips that I've been on, and I was there last Tuesday just after they were installed, and then again Thursday at rush hour, is that it's very much a lead car effect. If the lead car is driving appropriately, and especially on Thursday at rush hour, but also on Tuesday, vehicles were seeming to know what to do, and especially the northbound vehicles were straddling the dashed line. Then the cars behind it were straddling the dashed line, and there was room for a bicyclist southbound, a vehicle southbound, and a vehicle northbound all abreast without anybody pulling into the parking lane. And parked vehicles. Room for all of that within the span of the roadway. I think, too, in terms of people's understanding of the normal rules of the road, when people say, what do I do? I think it's important for people to understand and recognize that they do what they would do in any other situation, which is that if there's a bicyclist on the roadway, that 3-foot distance is required. If there's the ability to pass around, then the motorist has the right to pass around. If there is not that room to pass around, then the motorist, by law, has to hang back and wait for that opportunity. And in my discussions with people, my conversations, what I've tried to stress is that what the advisory lane functions as is just a reminder to watch and to observe those rules that they would otherwise observe. There also is, I think it was Channel 11 that did a news story on it. I don't know if we have the ability to link to that from our city's website, but they actually have a camera mounted in a vehicle that's driving the route, and it's a pretty clear depiction of what the driving can and should be. Okay. Great, wonderful. But just in the interim, this other video has actually been, there is a local blog that has been linked to it for about the last week, providing people with the opportunity to see that whenever it was that Channel 11 came out and did a story on it. So I guess for those reasons, I would like to, I do think people learned how to use roundabouts. We know that there are people who don't use them, but we also know that they have a purpose, that in an appropriate place they have a purpose. If this does not turn out to be the appropriate place for these lanes, then I would favor removing them. But I think that it's very early yet, and I do think that we have a very intelligent population that is learning how to use them when they have instruction on how to do that, which also was necessary. Somebody had a conversation with me last night and said, well, what kind of traffic devices require instructions? And I said, well, what about a roundabout? And we know that people required some kind of orientation to drive comfortably on roundabouts, but that once again people learned how to do it. It has worked well.
Member Sprague.
This year does present a learning curve for people because we have a lot of different types of facilities in the right-of-way. So this is just one of many new facilities they're going to have to adapt to. It gives us a chance to, instead of be reactive, we should be proactive. We should be out in front of our residents about these new facilities. I think we missed the mark on the advisory lanes and kind of got behind it instead of in front of it. But now we can use that notoriety that we've gotten, good or bad from the experience, and do some educating on all of our facilities. We've got green lanes on Valley View, which are going to be different for people, highly visible. So let's stay the course. I mean, it is experimental. That's another term for it's innovative. We're early adopters, and I believe that a driver is capable of adapting to these. It's not an insurmountable task. So I think we should continue to observe, and then down the road we can reevaluate if necessary. But I don't think it's insurmountable for people to adapt to the lanes that are there.
Member Brindle.
Well, I come at this from the perspective that I don't like surprises. And bing, 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 all of a sudden, emails, Edina Mail, Wooddale striping. And all of a sudden, there's something going on that I guess, stepping back, I would have liked to have known the schedule. I don't need to know the schedule when it's striping that we're accustomed to. But when it's something that we know is new, we've never used this before in our city, it would be nice to know before residents encounter it that this is going to occur. Is it going to replace the emails that came in the box? No, it isn't. We're still going to get the same emails, but we're going to have had the notion that this is happening, and it's happening in the first week of October. I know that there are some temperature kinds of considerations that have to be made when striping an asphalt roadway, and I've learned that since sitting in this chair and appreciate it. And that can affect the schedule. It can make something happen quicker than it might otherwise have happened. But yet, I think there probably is a day or two in there that that we can, as a council, be informed about a big change in our community. So that can happen. I do think in that same vein, there's probably time to write a city extra. There's probably time to get something out there that says, these are advisory bike lanes. This is how they work. This is how they look. Look for these along Wooddale. And I think that would have, I feel like there's a due diligence there that if that had been done, we could have said, well, we tried to tell you every way we could figure out to tell you that the striping would take place. But nonetheless, I do think I've thought about a number of options, and I've talked at length with Jennifer Janovi of the Transportation Commission, and please give it a chance. Please, give it a chance. I think she knew I was not happy mostly about being surprised. But one of the thoughts really was to pretty much put it back the way it was, except leave the parking lane there and make it a share the road. And I felt like, on the one hand, we could certainly do that, but if we do that, there's really no going back. We can't then go back and say, well, we're going to do advisory bike lanes now. And so we may put ourselves in a tougher position. That's where I've gotten to on that. We may put ourselves in a tougher position there because, like the community, we've got our own learning curve. And I think that I think it's easy to say, well, we goofed up on this and let's take a step back. But I think that we do risk going backwards on it after my talk with Jennifer. But I guess my big point is, if this is innovative, if this is something that we feel is important in our community, there is one other thing I want to mention, and that is the south end of Wooddale and the north end of Wooddale at 50th, I believe, are the same width of street. It feels a lot narrower on the 50th end because things are so close to the street. You've got trees that are close to the street. You've got the fence along the golf course that's in the right-of-way with the hedge that's very close to the street. So even though it's the same width as another part of the street that doesn't feel so constricted, it feels very tight there. And so consequently, I think that's a lot of the reaction that we're getting, is it just feels tight and tighter than it really is. That said, it is a narrow drive lane there, and so you will be driving on the advisory bike lane. You definitely will, unless there's a bike in the bike lane.
Member Swenson?
My only question, and they are getting better. I mean, I live 2 blocks off Wooddale. I'm on Wooddale multiple times a day. So I called Scott Neal on Friday, watching one driver that I felt very sorry for because she chose the middle of the road to drive in. And it is mainly people that seem to have the worst trouble going from north to south for some reason. I agree. There was, again, one truck with a trailer today in the middle of the road. I'm not even sure how they get in the middle of the road, looking at how it is. So does anyone ever add a dashed line in the middle of it to kind of give them some indication where the middle of the road used to be? I don't know why they don't see it, but they don't. So they choose to drive smack dab between the 2 dashed lines. So
we haven't, that's a question I need to ask the TLC folks and the MnDOT folks is can we add some temporary, maybe some tabs or something like that, just to train people up to stay on their side, knowing that they would wear away, basically.
I think that's really what I was thinking of. How can we help them spatially understand that this is the old middle of the road, it hasn't gone anywhere, it hasn't changed anywhere, even though it looks to them like they have, so that they can stay and be straddled. The other thing is the programmable message board. Read it again, because I think there might be a better way to say to people, straddle the bike lane unless there's a biker on it almost. I mean, I would be more, I don't know how you say it, but I read what we said on the programmable message board on Friday, and I didn't think it was clear enough.
We've changed it twice, so we're
Have
always,
you? Okay, so you understand that
we're looking
verbal,
for more
yeah,
and more.
and you only have a couple minutes, couple
Yep.
seconds to read, and it can flash twice, and so you can only see the 2 flashes before you're past it, and you can't read it again.
Yep.
So if there's some way we could cue the middle of the road and be better on our message, I think we didn't. We failed to do a good job letting our community know. We all knew the bike lane was coming in. We maybe didn't know what day it was coming on, but somehow the programmable message board and there's a change in the intersection orange things that are at that new stop at Concord. We probably could have done a better job, and we just didn't anticipate it.
Here's my problem with it. Every other place in town where we've put in new bike lanes or have had them in for a while, the motor vehicle and the bicycle are designed to coexist on the roadway pretty comfortably. What's happened on Wooddale is that the car has been relegated to a secondary position to the bike. The bike now has the dominant position on Wooddale. Unless you want to drive down the center of the road, which a lot of people are doing, I see them doing it all the time. I stood over there on Saturday afternoon, and a lot of people want to drive down the middle because they don't want to cross those dashed white lines because they think it's illegal. They're law-abiding Minnesotans, so they're all coming down, heading at each other, and they get over at the last minute. I still think it's a big mistake that we tried to ram 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag on Wooddale, and I don't like the idea that the bike has taken superior position on the roadway to the car. And it's meant primarily for car travel. So I don't know what the solution is. To me, it seemed like we should have bikes there. I'd like to get rid of those white dash lines, put in a dash center line, leave the parking bay, leave the symbols on the road. But I hear other people preaching patience. And
you want to go do Cheryl?
I want to do share the road on Wooddale. I think that's, you know, I don't think it's an optical illusion, Mary. I think the roadway is narrower from 50th to 54th and from like 60th to 62nd or to Valley View.
It definitely is.
And I think it's wider in the middle, because when I get down south of 54th, it feels spatially more comfortable. I don't know if it's wider or not, but
it's the same way.
Well, then there's something else going on.
Well,
but,
Mary has a point on the bushes. I think the country club bushes do make it feel tighter.
You know, it's the only place in town I feel like it's not right. We've done something wrong there.
Well, we made a conscious decision to beta test. So let's beta test. And if it doesn't work out, we have a fallback position, as you just mentioned. We can go back to a Cheryl, and experience and lessons will be gleaned from it. But right now, it looks like, to me, I went and took video today. It looks like a vast improvement over last week. So maybe it'll evolve again in another week. I'd sure like to see videos of the first rounds of people using roundabouts. I'm sure it was a total disaster, and then
you can't get hurt in a roundabout though. I mean, you can go.
Sure,
you're just going
you
around.
You can go the opposite direction, which I saw several people do on a roundabout.
But that's car on car. That's not car on bike.
15 miles an hour. I talked to a bicyclist today too. He was going by and asked him how he liked it, and said it's pretty good. So.
Oh, I'm sure.
If I may, one of the other concerns, I think I mentioned before that people were really concerned about retaining parking. They were also really concerned about speeding. And one of the things about the difference between a dashed and a solid line is a dashed line you can cross, and I think most drivers know that. When the center line is solid, you're not supposed to pass. When the solid line is dashed, you can pass. And in fact, I've been passed on Wooddale, driving illegal speed. So if this helps people drive more slowly and cautiously, we will have addressed concerns raised by many residents in those meetings a year ago. We will have accomplished one of the goals of local traffic in the city, which is to have traffic be slower and more cautious, especially in residential neighborhoods, because there's always, one of the things that I learned when I was on Transportation Commission at something in St. Paul was you cannot expect things that will happen in residential neighborhoods. Children can run out from a driveway, somebody can chase a ball, and when traffic proceeds at a pace that assumes that they can expect, that's when really bad things can happen, because the traffic is just going too fast for the conditions, the human life that's occurring around it. One suggestion for the sign is, I don't know if it already says this, keep to the right, except if bike's in lane, because that's another rule. In terms of the people being in the center, if people are keeping to the right, they will straddle that dashed line. They will not be in the parking lane, that's the solid line, but it will enable, again, that flow of traffic on the roadway. I do think there's been improvement. I was encouraged by what I saw at rush hour. And in terms of your point, Mayor, about the road, I think one of the things that we're learning, one of the things about living streets is it's not every mode on every road, but we do have to have a shared network. And this is an essential piece of a network that connects our residents with the lakes and the rounds in Minneapolis. south of that, because of the existence of the creek, we can't make the same connection. And that's why this route was chosen, because it does provide a really important link for our residents.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right about the speed, but one of the observations from Steve Clark from TLC was that he didn't see any reduction in speed, and so now we've enhanced the risk from a safety standpoint, and we haven't reduced the speed, so time will tell.
Commit to talking about
Yeah,
2
so
weeks from now with an update?
yeah, so Manager Neal, let's move to you. I think we've pretty well vetted this topic.
We talked a little bit already about our employee recognition event. We had a couple recognitions of tenure that I think are worth mentioning here. Liz Lopez celebrated 30 years of employment in our assessing department, and Bob Prestrud celebrated 35 years with the Parks Maintenance Group. So long tenured people. It was a nice, very nice event. Next week, next Thursday, I'll be attending something called the PSAP Integration Update Meeting. Hennepin County has been studying the concept of integrating our public safety answering points, the 911 centers in Hennepin County. As you know, there are a few cities that maintain their own 911 centers. We're one of them. There has been a study going on for a little over a year, repeats a study that was done a few years ago, where the county is looking at how could these centers be better integrated to cover the entire county in a better way.
We're still just doing Golden Valley, though. We didn't end up taking on Hopkins,
No, we did not end up taking on Hopkins. Hopkins decided to get out of the 911 dispatching business, and they are now dispatched by Hennepin County.
Okay, thank you.
But we do continue to dispatch for Golden Valley. And the last thing I have for you is just to let you know that our HR director, Lisa Schaefer, had a bouncing baby boy on September 24th. His name is Daniel Jack.
Yeah.
And the kid looks good. And we expect to see her back sometime later this year.
You know, one other thing that I just want to ask Clerk Mangan to comment on quickly. How many election judges did we appoint this evening?
A lot.
Do you know the count?
I'm sorry, I don't know that I have a final count. We kind of adopt the attitude of that anybody that is qualified to be appointed, we appoint, knowing that we might have 20 or 30 alternates.
Sure.
But don't forget, we have a great deal of work that we have to do with absentees, and so we have about 30 people that are just absentee judges. And then it said in my memo 47 students, but we actually had 2 more come in that were on the list. I didn't update the memo. It was 49 students.
It looks like over 300 to me, just
Yeah.
on a rough count. And then you also are reporting that 47 students responded to your call for student election judges. So congratulations on putting together a great crew. We know a lot of the people that are serving, and thanks to all those residents for serving as election judges. So, anything else? We stand adjourned.